For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.
Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another exciting and intense round of racing action in the series you've come to know and love. It is the SimRacing International America's GT Challenge Championship for 2025 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. That's right, another 2 weeks have gone as quick as that, and we have made our way around the US of A all the way to the West Coast and with it to the US state of California for the Long Beach Street Circuit. 1.96 miles in length, consisting of 11 corners. It is a circuit which weaves and winds its way through downtown Long Beach, and whether it be the palm tree lined start-finish straight, the aquarium, alternatively the fountain section, or the absolutely terrifying hairpin, this is as tough a street circuit as they come, and arguably you could say that this is the Monte Carlo of the US of A. With very little room to manoeuvre and overtaking opportunities refined to the straights, it means for our drivers here today that a good qualifying lap and patience when racing are going to go in equal measure towards success. And therefore for our GTE and GT3 drivers, they've got to be smart with the craft and know exactly when's the right time to strike, and sometimes it might be better to do things on strategy than it is with an outright overtake on track. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast of Circuit Side as you tune in today to this round of the championship. It's round number 8 and we're very happy to have you here with us, and you can be tuning in right now via the #1 place to catch all things SimRacing International, and of course that is none other than on our YouTube channel at youtube.com and search for SRI or SimRacing International, and you can be joining the rank and file of many who tune in, week out. And don't be shy, feel free to say hi and let us know how you're doing today, whether you had a great weekend, and if not, we'll do our very best to turn that frown upside down into a smile. In the quarantine booth, you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX1 or Britain the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. Now we bring you all your racing action as it unfolds over the entirety of this round, indeed for the remainder of the season. And goodness me, what a season it has been so far, and we've still got more lying in wait. But as we come into this round, let's recap the story from last time out in round number 7 and see exactly where the standings lie coming into our final 3 rounds of the season. Because as we can see then, look into our calendar. Last time out on the 9th of November, we got the 11th month of 2025 underway with a bang, and it was of course in none other than Canada at the circuit Charles Villeneuve. There at the hybrid street circuit there was intrigue up and down the running order, because in the GT class it was an incredibly close battle between Francisco Barrionuevo, Graham Wildmon, Tim Perry and Hayden Miller, which saw in the end Hayden Miller take his first win of the season. He was denied the last time we were in Canada at the Motorsport Park circuit all the way back on the 31st of August with round number 2, but he finally nailed it on strategy and outright pace, and he surprised himself and everybody with both running away to victory right at the end when he nailed it on his second pit stop. Meanwhile, Wildmon, he couldn't quite take the win he wanted, but he was able to score points versus Francisco Barrionuevo, and therefore he'll be hoping that that's an inroad into potentially trying to chisel away the GT Championship leader's advantage with 3 rounds to go. But knowing that today this circuit does not favour his Ford GT, indeed it's going to favour the formidable Corvette C8Rs. As for the GT3 class, we got to see Ale Torres continue to stand strong, following a third place finish last time out, and meanwhile his closest rival Pedro Luis da Silva struggled, it would seem, to return to the podium. Indeed, he hasn't been seen there for some time, as meanwhile Sam Derbyshire absolutely led the way after an early instant for Yannis Albert really unleashed the Mercedes driver on the road to victory. And it'll be the last time we see him on the grid this season due to personal circumstances, but what a way to sign off his racing for this season with a win in the GT3 class and looking absolutely unstoppable. But it is still Ale Torres who leads the way when the championship is concerned. But with only 3 rounds remaining, after today we'll have our final 60-minute race in 2 weeks' time at Road America with the Countryside Classic circuit in the US state of Wisconsin, welcoming our drivers. That'll be on the 7th of December. And then for round number 10, our final round of the season, it'll be the 4th of our 90-minute endurance races, and it will be all the way to the mecca of road racing in the US of A, and indeed all the way back to the East Coast for the New York State circuit of Watkins Glen without its chicane. And that's where we'll see our drivers bring the season to a close in what's been an incredible season of racing over 4 months, and it'll all conclude just in time for Christmas. But coming into this round then, we've recapped who took victory last time out, but where exactly did the standings stand after 7 rounds of racing? When we start off with the GTE Drivers' Championship. And as we can see here, Francisco Barrionuevo for Enosis Esports for that 4th place last time out. His lead has been slightly slashed, down to 27 points over Soy Boys Racing Graham Wildmon, but Wildmon is still having to try and find a way to cut the Spaniards' advantage down, and rounds are running out. Tim Perry as well, another podium, albeit a 3rd place, making it his third place of the season. The Altitude 3M Esports driver, knowing that right now he's also on the heels of the top 2, but he needs a big result if he wants to get himself right in the hunt, as right now it looks like it's going the way of Barrionuevo little by little, and Graham Wilderman's really the one trying to upset the trolley cart. But behind the top 3, it's a further 48 points to Hayden Miller, the Phoenix Racing Blue driver, trying to chase down the Altitude 3M Esports Corvette of Perry. How that win last time out will definitely help him in that, but what won't help him is the non-finish from round number 5 and also the drop score from round number 4. Whereas Lewis Kenyon, meanwhile, only sits 20 points behind him for Biltong and Bangers, and still fancies his chances at a 4th place finish this season. Max Wheeler is a further 26 points behind after a rather quiet day last time out, and to recover his way through the field for the most part for Free Wheelers Racing. Head of Justin Noel for SJS Racing, and then we see Thomas Pugh for Axis SimSport Lightning, Iron Stitchby for Arrive and Drive by OA Motorsports, and sim coaches Matthew Bacon wrapping up the top 10. And how close it is there between the final 3. Indeed, only 49 points separating the trio, and when you can see it's only a further 12 points to Jaden Scotton for Flatline Racing X in 11th, and then only another 8 points to Nils Kula for Axis SimSport Fire. Well, the bottom half of the top 10 is just as exciting as the top half. Indeed, this GT Drivers' Championship could go down to the wire for so many different positions. However, Iron Stitchby today, we're not going to be seeing him on the grid, unfortunately. Due to personal circumstances, he is having to substitute out, but he is substituting out to a name that we're becoming very familiar with from the Arrive and Drive by RA Motorsports team, because we will be seeing Christophe Demay jump into the GTE car, the GT Ferrari 488, having been racing recently in the GT3 entry for the team on the behalf of none other than Yannis Albert in previous rounds. So therefore, no strangers on the grid as far as the team is concerned. But coming from the GTE standings then to the GT3s, and here we can see Ale Torres still leading by an advantage that is not going down, it's going upwards, albeit by a smidgen. Last time out with that 3rd place, the Enosis Esports Drive versus the 4th place of GPX SimSport Onyx's Pedro Luis da Silva. But the point is, that gap of 81 points is looking unshakable. And indeed, right now for Luis da Silva, he's the only driver who can theoretically steal the crown away from Torres, unless both drivers have a nightmare season from this point onwards. And Harvey Wheeler, meanwhile, in 3rd place. Well, the Free Wheelers Racing driver, much like his teammate in the GT class, was on a recovery drive last time out and recovered well to 8th place after early drama, but knows that right now he's having to try and hold on to 3rd place all the way to the end of the season. The first driver trying to chase after him is William Humphrey for Grazing Good Racing, after a brilliant 2nd place finish, albeit inheriting the 2nd place from Yannis Albert, some would say, but he had to be in the right place to do it and was untouchable compared to Torres. Archie Williams sits in 5th for SJS Racing, albeit a very frustrating day at Charles Villeneuve, and he'll be hoping to amend that very quickly because only 8 points behind him is Sigurd Christopher Wamser, the Pandatech Motorsports green driver, that non-finish after that early retirement. Well, he'll be feeling as though it is a championship that's come off the tracks and he needs to get it back on track as quickly as he can. Yannis Aubert there, well, that non-finish last time out relegated him to 7th for arrive and drive by RA Motorsports, but we'll see him back on the grid today looking to give it his all. Head of Matthew Croft by only 4 points there, and the Axis SimSport Ice driver ahead of his sister team driver of Chris Jennings, albeit the Fire driver there is 35 points behind. And normally it is Fire that beats Ice, but right now it does seem as though Ice is beating Fire. Whereas Bobby Moss of Phoenix Racing Blue brings to a close the top 10 on 142 points, 6 ahead of Joe Glass for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing, and Reece Saunders there, who we won't see on the grid today for Altitude 3M Esports. He's going to be substituted by none other than Adam Watson. Well, we can see him now on 133 points, looking to try and break into the top 10, albeit Charles Villeneuve proving to be a very frustrating round for him when nothing went quite right. But as for the teams championship standings, start off the pro teams, Enosis Esports right now continue to dominate at the very top, and indeed it looks as though right now it is going their way, and theoretically they could complete proceedings around early today should they score massively and nobody else scores well at all. If not, it will be a formality when they go to Road America in a week's time, where they'll be looking to wrap things up comfortably with a round to spare. Therefore, the big question is, who's going to be your runner-up? And right now, it's Phoenix Racing Blue after their big injection of points from Hayden Miller last time out, but they do have Altitude 3M Esports never too far behind, 41 adrift. It's 17 points to Freewheelers Racing, and a further 8 to Octane Racing Academy, or RA Motorsports Arrive and Drive, and that goes to show you right now that the fight for second really is the big story here, where Enosis Esports have really been the dominant force, and they've essentially claimed the top of the championship with plenty of time in the bag. But from the 433 points of RA, we then do see it's only 393 points away for SJS Racing there, 40 points adrift from the top 5, but they've got their own pressures to deal with, and first and foremost is that 5-point gap they have to GPX SimSport Onyx's James Bostock and Pedro Luis da Silva, albeit we won't be seeing Bostock on the grid today in the GTE class. We'll see him substituted by Mr. Robin Noel Brown. I also said Noel Edmonds there, and that's a running joke amongst the team there. If any of you don't know who Noel Edmonds is, you may remember him as Mr. Blobby, alternatively as Deal or No Deal Man with the funky shirts. But I can promise you that Noel Brown doesn't necessarily have the funky shirts, unless I've been misinformed, but he does have the funky racecraft, and he'll definitely trying to bring the funk to the circuit and look to try and take a win. Soy Boys Racing in 8th place there. They're also in a good chance, 49 points away from the top 7, but they are only 21 points ahead of Biltong and Bangers, with Grazing Good Racing completing your top 10 there, and on 295 points, they're looking a little bit vulnerable to the teams behind them. However, coming to the Prime class, and here we can see that it is Axis SimSport 1-2 still, but look at how these championship stands continue to close down. It is Fire ahead of Ice, but only by 13 points, and it's a further 10 to SimCoach, who continue to creep forward little by little, and having one of their best rounds of the season last time out. Bacon and Pioneer right now really proving to be a very strong force in their respective Corvettes. Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing are only 6 points behind as they also push forward, and then Phoenix Racing Red have dropped a long way away from the top 4, but they lead the rest of the field on 105 points. Outside the top 5, it's then to the 93 of Dexterous Motorsport Zemix, who are 10 adrift, with that 12 adrift there if I can do my mathematics and read what the chart says, but he's ahead of Moonshiners Racing Club on 84 points, and it's the further fight to Dexterous Motorsports Coir, as the two DXT teams look to try and finish this season 5th and 6th. Then we do have Ellis Racing at number 2. They're on 63 points, 14 ahead of 9 Pegasus Pantera, and that completes your top 10 in the Pro-Am Teams Championship. But there's two very different stories. The fight for the top between the top 4, and then the fight for 5th for the rest of the field. And indeed, if you were to look through all the Pro-Am teams, you'd find all 15 of them are very closely matched together in order to go together in that fight for 5th place. But as we talk then from our standings to our circuit for today, we told you the story coming into this round, but where are we going to be setting this chapter of the championship? Where's the course at Long Beach Grand Prix Circuit, located within the city limits of Long Beach in the Los Angeles County of the US state of California, 1.96 miles in length, or 3.16 kilometers, 11 corners, and a fantastic circuit map provided to us by iRacing.com, and a huge thank you to them, not just their brilliant simulator, but the track maps that are contained within it. A very flat circuit, this one, bar some minor elevation changes on the run through turn 6 in towards turn number 8. There's a slight bridge on the exit of turn number 7. But other than that, it's as flat as they come. And therefore, for our drivers, what they lack in the elevation change on the circuit, they'll have to make up for in being mindful of the walls that loom incredibly large around here. And we can expect the main overtaking opportunities to occur down the start-finish straight from turn 11 to turn 1, and also on the run from turn 8 to turn 9 on the back stretch. Some may decide to be brave and attack into the fountain section of turns 2 and 3. Alternatively, in the short run from turn 5 to 6. But one thing our drivers will not want to do is try to overtake into turn number 11, because that is the dreaded hairpin, a very tight corner, and well, if you go deep there, you don't have enough room to try and turn the car through the corner with the tight steering locks of these GT3 and GT machines. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see a few drivers, if they run deep, they may have to do a 3 or 4 point turn. But as we turn them back to our circuit side, we've told you about the story coming into today, but we're all here for the racing. Well, right now we make our way into qualifying. And as we do, well, everybody out there right now in a closed qualifying format, and this gives them all an opportunity to try and go for pole position without having to worry about stepping on each other's toes. And indeed, can you imagine if we had an open qualifying format here at Long Beach? We stuck with closed qualifying all the way through the season, to be fair, but if we did have an open qualifying format, it would be potential pandemonium, as that was almost pandemonium there for Thomas Pugh, our provisional pole sitter right now in GTE, going very sideways there out of turn number 5, but just about grabs it back together in the nick of time. But as he does so, and a lot of our drivers right now will really getting themselves settled in. One of the other things we haven't really talked about here, and this could be one of the big decisive factors of the racing today, is the conditions. Now, there is no rain on the cards. We don't have to worry about that. We've got a bit of cloud at the moment, but there's been a lot of sun bearing down the streets along Beach. And in terms of what that has done to the circuit, it means that we have an ambient temperature right now of 21 degrees centigrade, but the track temperature is a scorching 40 degrees centigrade at this time. It peaked at 44 midway through practice whilst everybody was out on the circuit, and that changes the way the racing occurs. Now, it doesn't change the rules or anything along those lines, but let's talk a little bit more about it. When you see track temperatures rise, there is a natural progression whereby from the coldest temperatures, you will see the grip levels gradually rise as the cars will have more heat in them, particularly when it comes to the tyre compound. It makes the tyre a little bit more sticky and therefore grippier as our drivers try to attack the circuit. However, there comes a crossing point where you maximise the grip in respect of track temperature, and if you go beyond that maximum temperature, what you find is actually the warmer the circuit then becomes, the grip levels lessen and the tyre degradation rate increases dramatically. And when you get to 40 degrees plus, you are really in territory where tyre degradation can be horrendous and track grip levels can actually prove to be very icy. Now, it sounds rather contradictory, but many describe driving on a very hot track the equivalent of driving on an ice rink, because the tyres will not grip up very well, and instead what they end up doing is they overheat very quickly, and when the tyres overheat, our drivers will start to struggle finding the grip, and that is where the challenge is going to lie here. And what worse of a place to lack grip on the street circuit, where there are no real runoff areas other than going straight on at turn number 1 and also going deep at turns 9 and 11, of which we see Matt Hoyland here making his way up towards turn number 9 but successfully heading through it. Now, we should give a big warm welcome to Matt Hoyland, who debuts today, and he is substituting for a fellow member of the Axis Simsport Lightning team in the GT3 class of Ashley Brooks, who's not on the grid for this round. We've got several substitutions here. We talked about a couple of others earlier on, and I think we have covered them all now. We also do have some penalties coming into this round, and in the GTE class in particular, Martin Kenyon is not permitted to take part in qualifying because he is now on 10 licence points, and therefore he will need to start from the back of the GT field. Meanwhile, we will have a drive-through penalty that needs to be served in the race. It would have been served by Reece Saunders. However, he is not here today. He's been substituted for in the GT3 class at Altitude 3M Esports by none other than Adam Watson, who's currently the fastest of your drivers out there in the all-white BMW M4. And as he makes one around with Watson right now, we'll know that at some point he will need to serve that drive-through penalty, and therefore he's going for the overall pole time, and he'll look to try and break away at the very start of the race. And well, we welcome him to the grid once again. He's been on the grid a couple of times this season, and he's back in the GT3 machine for the team. But as he heads on down towards another lap, well, all of our drivers are already getting their laps in very quickly. They have 20 minutes in qualifying, but they only have 4 flying laps available to them. And well, we need to bring you an on-board lap with one of our drivers to give you an idea of what it's like to put a lap together here at the Long Beach Street Circuit. And to do so, we're going to jump on board with Bobby Moss as he takes us around. So we're on his way down the start-finish straight here, or through the curve, past the palm trees, and as he goes on to his final flying lap, looks to his right hand side for his brake marker. Be about 150 metres of corner entry, and as he does so, coming all the way down to first gear, lets the car roll in nice and deep, back up to second, now into the fountain sequence. Straight line the braking zone as much as you can, takes plenty of apex, a bit too much, and Moss goes round into the barrier, and well, that's not the way he's wanted to start the day for Bobby Moss, and well, as he does take the car back to the pits, well, that was an onboard lap that very quickly came to a close, but thankfully we can carry on the story with Robin Noel Brown, who actually goes on deep there, and well, I get the feeling that we might end up not getting an onboard lap there, because as quickly as we tried to find them, while drivers are making mistakes, and in fact, we're going to have a last resort here, and we are going to go all the way, and I don't mean it in a derogatory fashion, we are going to try and get an onboard lap with Robin Powner instead, who goes on to his final flying lap, and as he does so, well, here we go again, ladies and gentlemen. So much like before, coming in towards turn number 1, braking nice and early here, all the way down to first gear, goes deep and just hits the barrier there. And well, Panny's going to carry on, but how much damage has that done to the car? You tell me, as he makes it out of turns 2 and 3, coming through the fountain and in towards turn number 4. He's going to use this as a practice lap here, and I think he expects to have a few bumps and scrapes over the distance through turn number 5. A very tricky apex curve there that unsettles the rear of the car at the best of times, as he now heads up towards turn 6 and 7. Bring it all the way over to the right hand side, braking at the 150 metre board, into second gear, feed the throttle in, straighten the steering wheel, and fight with the car he does, as he now comes over the rise and over to the left. Onto the brakes he goes, then braking at the 200-yard board, through the right-hander at turn number 8, sliding around left, right and centre. It really is slippery right now, and indeed that's how warm the circuit is and the lack of grip in the tyres. As Barrionuevo makes his way into the braking zone here in his Corvette GT3 machine. Into turn number 9, plenty of apex curve, hops over it, and brings the car over to the right-hand side to open up turn number 10. Patience here, drops to second gear, keep the throttle slightly pinned, and now onto the brakes nice and hard through turn number 11. That's how tight it is on the racing line. That gives you an idea why overtaking there is not advised. And as he makes his way towards the timeline, well, it will have been a compromised lap as a result of that contact with the barrier, but Barrionuevo carries on, and he did improve in the middle sector. So if it were not for that knock to the wall, he may have been able to move forward, but he does take 10th place provisionally in the GT3 class, as Dean Sheesby here goes even quicker in the Puma machine, and as he does so, their new livery on the car today, and looking very quick for Moonshiners Racing Club, and that puts him into 10th, just ahead of Barrionuevo there on a 19.545. So looking quicker and quicker is Sheesby, as John Malnerich meanwhile is on a cool down lap. He's the last of your GT3 tries at the moment, in 18th place in the class and 37th overall. And well, Graham Wildmon, as we understand it, has not set an indicative time. Now, to be fair, Graham might be taking his time here and opting to go out in qualifying at the very last moment. Remember, our drivers have all the time in the world available to them, as we do see Tim Perry there in the Altitude 3M Esports machine, making his way out of the final corner. And as he does so, well, he has got what is one more lap available to him in the Corvette C8R GTE, and he's currently in 3rd place. But he's been building up to this, and well, here we go then, ladies and gentlemen, for the final time for Perry. Can he pull off a miracle? Can he steal away overall and GT pole position from Francisco Barrionuevo, when the Oasis Esports driver setting a very hard time to beat of a 16.277? Well, as Perry makes his way through the fountain section, absolutely pinpoint precise, as he now heads in towards turn number 4. And well, Thomas Pugh was the 10th faster than him in the BMW M8. So there's still life in the very beastly BMW. The outlier, of course, in GTE being front engine rear wheel drive, whereas all the others are mid engine rear wheel drive in terms of their drivetrains. But Perry right now through turn 6 and 7, you can see how close he gets to the wall there as he comes out for the left hander and now into the right hander of turn number 8. As close as he can to the entry wall, and oh my goodness, and as he comes through the corner, too much speed. I think he might have actually hit the apex wall, but Perry's qualifying session is done and dusted, and will Sheesby on a cool down lap here, but we still have the question of will Graham Wildmon get a lap in, and well, we are trying to double check as to what's happening with Wildmon. We haven't got anything to explain at the moment, so therefore we will see what will happen with him, but hopefully we get to see him out there, as we do say hello to Matthew Heil 8330 there, and good evening to you, good sir, and I hope you're doing well. With 7 minutes left on the clock, everybody has put in their representative times so far, minus Graham Wildmon and Martin Kenyon. But of course, keeping in mind, Kenyon has a qualifying ban. He's not permitted to qualify, so he will start at the very back of our 21 GTEs. Wildmon, meanwhile, if he does not get a representative lap in, he will start 20th of the GT field. And with his championship rival, the man he's trying to hunt down, of Francisco Barrionuevo on pole position, as it stands, understandably, that could have huge consequences for the championship, and it may, in a way, see the momentum shift so dramatically to the Gnosis Esports driver that Wildmon will be at the mercy of what will be Barrioneuvo having a nightmare final 2 rounds. But as we do have here, none other than she's been making his way on down, well, it looks so things are starting to fall silent on the circuit. We still have 6 minutes left, however, and therefore anything's possible before it's all said and done, as Neil's caller just waits in his pit box there, and as he does so, well, obscured to a degree by all the furniture around, but it does look so cool that they're very happy with 7th place in GTE. But as things do take a bit of a pause, well, talk a little bit about this Long Beach Street Circuit. Originally opened in the 1970s, or what we should say is originally cordoned off in the 1970s for an inaugural Formula One race, which would be hosted for the best part of a decade and a half. Indeed, Formula One making its way to the United States of America and visiting Long Beach on several occasions. But since then, it has gone on to host racing from multiple different disciplines, and on a regular basis today, even hosts racing from the likes of what is the IMSA Sports Car Championship, particularly when it comes to GT3 and GTP racing machines. And a much loved circuit for the fact that it's a very different tone of circuit in the US of A compared to many, and the same could be said for the likes of St. Petersburg, for example, where street circuits really do hit home well with regards to the class of racing they do deploy, and street circuits becoming a bigger and bigger theme in the US of A in the more modern era of motorsport. Of course, with the arrival of the Chicago Street Circuit that was jointly developed between iRacing and NASCAR. If you want to know about the story behind that one, that's definitely a brilliant read, because originally the circuit was simulated on iRacing, and then the design was essentially taken by the street authorities of Chicago and NASCAR, and they then worked on moulding the circuit together based on what iRacing had modelled, based on real streets and real locations in Chicago City, and that's how that race came about, with a virtual 2023 NASCAR event being held at the Chicago Street Circuit, and in 2024 they held the maiden one, if my memory serves me correctly. I may be out by a year. But we are still waiting for where Graham Wildmon is, and no sign at the moment, ladies and gentlemen. I can see there, Computer Gamer 33 and M. McGeehan all asking where he is. He's not in the car, so therefore we have got no idea. In fact, there he is. So he's making his way out the pit lane. He's going to give this one go. Wildmon then makes his way on out. This is do or die for the Soy Boys Racing Drive. He's given himself 4 minutes, and well, if he pulls this off, he's going to be a hero. If he doesn't pull it off, well, we'll have to wait and see where he falls, but he's going to throw everything at this. And you may remember in an interview of him only a round ago, he said to us at Circuit Charles Villeneuve, these GTEs, they only get one good lap, and it is the very first lap after the out lap. So Wildmon will have the minimum amount of fuel in this car. He will get the outlap in. The tyres will be up to temperature very quickly, given the warm nature of the circuit. And then Wildmon is going to toss everything at this. He has kept us all waiting. I think he was waiting to see how much rubber would be laid down effectively by everybody else. And now he goes out there. So here we go then, ladies and gentlemen. He's going to throw everything at this. And well, this is going to be an onboard lap that we're going to love all the way to the very end. As we all say hello there to Gary at Wheeler, who's cheering on Freewheelers Racing. And we'll get into you, Gary. I hope you're doing well. We did see Gary, I believe, on the grid earlier on this season, debutanting for what was one of his teammates. And in fact, deputising. There's the word I'm looking for. Goodness me, debutant and deputy, two similar words. But right now, as I mince my words there, I better not mince my words, as we do see Wildmon on his way then onto his one and only flying lap in this qualifying session. Here we go. So down the start-finish straight, he charges up into 6th gear here, and as he gets ready for the opening braking zone, looking to his right, and he'll be hard on the anchors here, making sure not to trigger the lockups on the brakes. Through turn number 1 in 2nd gear, and now into the fountain sequence, using all the space available. Straight line as much as possible under braking, down to 1st. Back on the throttle immediately now as he gets in towards turn number 4. Here it's about patience. Down to 2nd gear, let it roll out, open up turn number 5, and very quickly dance your way onto the apex curve. They're straight in the steering, full throttle now in 3rd gear, as he heads over towards the right-hand side for turns 6 and 7. Onto the brakes he comes then at the 200-yard board, down to 2nd gear, clips the wall and makes way on out, and as he does so, 3rd gear absolutely smooth as butter there as he comes over the rise and over to the left-hand side for turn number 8. Nice light apex there, feeds the throttle in 2nd gear, has to fight with a little bit of power oversteer, but now it's the run down the back stretch, somewhere where the Ford GT is very strong on these straights. But as he does so, personal best all the way through, but not purple so far as he comes in towards turn number 9. Plenty of apex curve there being cut, And now as he makes way into turn number 10, well, it's going to be all the way through very smoothly down to first gear. Very long first gear in this Ford GT. They've set that up to maximise the amount of engine braking and downshifting they could do. But as Wildmon clears the hairpin, what's it going to be? What is likely to be his one and only flying lap? And in the end for Wildmon, it is going to be 7th place. Well, if he's got another one in the tank here, we're going to get a third-person perspective on it all the way through. Perhaps he's set the car up for what is 2 flying laps here. And, well, perhaps that first one was a reconnaissance lap, and now he's going to go for it. But he's 8 tenths off the overall pole time. But he might fancy his chances with one more roll of the dice. And Tim Perry is out there just on the reconnaissance lap. Meanwhile, the L23M Esports driver can't put another valid lap in as we're to understand it. But as we do continue to look at Graham Wildmon, well, now he's really attacking the lap, no doubt about it. Albeit his Sector 1, about the same as his previous best. But as he makes his way now out of Sector 2, a personal best there. And well, he's in Sector 3 now as he comes through turn number 8. Really have to dance the car through the corners then. I don't think he could be any closer to the wall without making contact with it. But as he powers his way down, we can see here that Wildmon right now, he's gone personal best in Sector 3. I think he wants to be on that front row as a minimum, and I think that's got to be the target if he wants to keep his championship alive. Goes a bit deep there at turn number 10, but gets the better recovery line for it. And as he comes out of the final corner then, what can Wildmon do here to the line? Can he move up for the 7th place? Well, all signs are pointing to yes, he can, but the proof will be as he crosses that timeline here, he breaks it. Purple final sector, and for Graham Wildmon, it's 4th place. He doesn't go any higher than that. Does he go for one more lap here? He does have the right to do it. He has got valid laps in the bag, and we do have overtime rules in effect, I believe. So Wildmon here throws it again. So he has decided, in fact, he's thrown caution to the wind and has said today, you know what, I'm going to put 3 laps together and keep everybody waiting. Well, as he comes on through at turn number 4 and up towards 5, well, the clock strikes a 0, and as it does, a checker flag comes out, and in fact, that will be it. I do apologise there for misinforming you, but Graham Wildmon will take 4th place at best, and that is the grid set, ladies and gentlemen, and we head into our race, and with it, we get to see how drives all line up for 60 minutes of racing here at the Long Beach Street Circuit. So as they all head to the grid for the formation lap, it is Francisco Barrionuevo, the GTE Championship leader, who takes pole position there for Enosis Esports, and in the end by almost 2 tenths over Axis SimSport Lightning's Thomas Pugh, who impresses there in the BMW behind the very impressive pole lap of Barrionuevo. Tim Perry starts the day 3rd place there for L23M Esports, in the end a 10th quicker than Graham Wildmon for Soy Boys Racing, who's going to need to do it all in the race now, starting from the back end of the 2nd row of the grid. Lewis Kenyon begins the day 5th for Biltong and Bangers, ahead of Hayden Miller for Phoenix Racing Blue. The winner from Charles Villeneuve, well, he's not quite impressed in qualifying, but can he impress in the race? Jaden Scott begins this one in 7th for Flatline Racing X, with a season best qualifying performance there for some time, ahead of Niels Cooler for Axis SimSport Fire. Then we do see Christophe Demaille, the Frenchman, starting in 9th there for Arrive and Drive by RA Motorsports, and your top 10 is completed by Andrew Montaigne. From the Romanian driver for Axis SimSport Ice, we then do have sim coaches Matthew Bacon, who begins today best the rest of the GTEs in 11th place, ahead of Justin Noel for SJS Racing. Liam Fraser begins this one in 13th for Moonshiners Racing Club, hoping that he can make some forward progress to a top 10 finish. If not, Nick Stubb for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing will be right there with him at 14th on the grid. It's on the Dutchman back to Britain of Max Wheeler for Freewheeler Racing, who has his worst qualifying points of the season starting 15th, but he is ahead of Robin Noel Brown for GPX SimSport Onyx. And then we do have Jesper Lukainen starting 17th for Panaspet Motorsports Green, ahead of Rob Mackay for Dexterous Motorsports MX, where Pete Piper for LS Racing 1, ahead of Andrew Fellows for Flatline Racing, completing your top 20. Outside that top 20, starting in 21st on the grid, the last of your GT starters with no valid lap due to a qualifying ban, it is Martin Kenyon for Dexterous Motorsports Quamar. Then, coming to the GT3 field, starting at 22nd overall, it is Adam Watson, who as he substitutes in for Reece Saunders, delivers a pole position there by 4 attempts, but he knows he's got a drive-through penalty to serve in the race. How far can he break away at the start? That's got to be his goal. From the GT3 pole sitter behind him, it's Yanis Albert for Arrive and Drive by RA Motorsports, and Matt Hoyland for Axis SimSport Lightning. Then, on the 3rd row of the GT3 grid, starting 25th overall, it's William Humphrey for Grays and Good Racing, and Alec Torres for Enosis Esports. Behind the Spaniard, it's Chris Jennings for Axis SimSport Fire, and then we do have Pedro Luis da Silva GPX SimSport Onyx, and Torres will be very happy that despite qualifying 5th place, he's still 2 places ahead of the only driver who can steal the crown away from him. Harvey Wheeler begins this one in 29th place for Freewheelers Racing, ahead of Brandon White, who has the season best qualifying points there, starting in 9th place in GT3 for LS Racing 2. Ahead of Dean Sheesby, who starts 31st on the 16th row of the grid for Moonshiners Racing Club, and Robin Powney will join him there, 32nd on the grid for Sim Coach. Matthew Croft for Axis Simsport Ice begins this one 33rd, ahead of Joe Glass of Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing. And then we do have Archie Williams for SJS Racing being partnered on the 18th row of the grid by Bobby Moss for Phoenix Racing Blue. Ed Juncker starts 37th for Flatline Racing, and the American driver on the home sole will look to impress today, albeit far away from home, is Grant Miller. He starts 38th for Phoenix Racing Red, but never counts him out. He normally makes progress very quickly in the race in his McLaren 720S Evo. John Malnrich completes the field, and with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are green, and our drivers roar the way away as quickly as that, and as they do, well, it is Francisco Barrionuevo who gets the field away then as they roar the way down towards turn number 1. Barrionuevo has a good start, but Perry battling hard here with Pugh, as 60 minutes of racing very quickly culminates in an opening quarter, and as they make the way on around right now, that's a run deep there from Stubb, who gets it together just before he makes haste to the barrier. Oh, goodness me! Stubb comes in way too hot into the fountain and taps the rear there of Andrew Montine's BMW, but he survives it, and they all just about make it all through. As you can see, Matthew Bacon being forced backwards as Liam Fraser right up the inside of Bacon, and the Moonshiners Racing Club driver is not wasting any opportunities here as soon as they appear. Meanwhile, in the GT3 class, with a great start for Alan Watson, he holds on to the lead after the opening couple of quarters. Yannis Aubert right behind him, and Matt Hoyland and William Humphrey are all together. As they make the way on around, we can see that Ale Torres not too far back at all, and Torres right now trying to get a little bit more involved in the fight, but no real change between them. GT3 class is exactly how it started for all of the 18 drivers. Meanwhile, GTE's got definitely plenty more change occurring. As we do look to Justin Noel with Robin Noel Brown right behind him. Well, it's the battle of the Noels, albeit right now the one with the double barrel name is the Pursuer and the one with the single name is the Leader. In their fight for 14th place, they come out of the hairpin, and well, a little bit of run deep there from Justin Noel, but that's not going to upset him too much. But after one lap, it's Barrionuevo who still leads ahead of Perry. But here comes none other than Graham Wildmon. He started 4th, and right now he's trying to crusade his way up the field as Thomas Pugh lets that one go. And I think the Axis Simsport driver there playing this race a bit more tactically, which is just waiting for an opportunity to get involved. As they all come on through, well, meanwhile, from them, Thomas Pugh and Lewis Kenyon and Hayden Miller will now queue up behind here and fancy their chances, as we do have a bit of change further back, and we do see that Justin Noel has found his way past Matthew Bacon. That's been into the fountain, and well, Noel has made a little bit more progress as he heads onwards towards turns 6 and 7. As he does so, well, his next target, William Fraser, who is 2 seconds up the road and is already starting to pull away, and indeed is looking very quick in his own BMW M8. But then again, of course, this is a very strategic race here, and I can imagine a lot of drivers will be immediately trying to look at tyre saving and also some fuel saving. We'll see exactly how they all pick it together. But as we then come to Adam Watson, the all-white number 84 there, making its way over the rise and down. Yannis Aubert and Matt Hoyland staying right with him, as William Humphrey is falling back a little bit. 9 tenths behind, and Ale Torres, the Enosis Esports GT3 Championship leader, is right there with him. But I think Torres right now playing the bigger picture game, which is he doesn't need to win this race. All he needs to do is finish ahead of Luis da Silva and not finish too far down the order to make sure that championship crown is heading into his hands. And it's getting a little bit crowded here, as we do see Matthew Croft at the inside of Robin Powney. This will be for 11th place in GT3, but Powney is not going to step aside as they now make the way into turn number 10. Powney is still there for now, but Croft goes all the way around the outside, and he will get it stopped on a dime as Powney looks up the inside, goes for a cheeky lunge there, and well, that's the only time you can get away with 2 wide at the hairpin, and very well played there, Robin Powney. Croft went a bit deep, and Powney said, right, if you're going to go that deep, I might as well go for it. The only problem is now, as he's trying to get the power down, he can't go full throttle early, and therefore they're going to battle their way all the way out towards turn number 1. Joe Glass thinks about making this 3 wide in the Vulcan Fasters Mercedes that's right behind me. He backs off as Croft comes in very hot into the corner. Meanwhile, Archie Williams is there. Oh, goodness me, car to the barrier. That is Andrew Fellows' Corvette that's creeping along. It's recovered, thankfully, but it is minus a rear wing and also a lot of front bumper damage. But the GT drives all the way down to the GT3s now. I don't know how he's managed to cause that to happen, but we will get a replay of that very shortly to explain, as everybody who started this race is still running comfortably. And John Malnrich here bringing up the rear of the field for Soy Boys Racing. We're good to see John out there in the Ford Mustang GT3, chasing after Grant Miller and Bobby Moss. As they power the way onwards, we come back to the very start-finish line, because here's Hayden Miller and Lewis Kenyon side by side. And Miller right now, he's right there with the Biltong and Bangers driver backing off. Kenyon, I don't think fancying his chances this time around. And Miller just holding his ground there to take the place back. As he does, Christophe de Meyer will be watching this with eager interest as he runs in Stitchbury's car today. We jump on board here with de Meyer in the 922, and the arriving driver, RA Motorsports driver, well, staying this close. And this really gives you an onboard perspective, not just how tight the circuit is, but how close they run to each other from corner to corner, and the fact that the concertina effect around here is so pronounced. And you've got to be ready for the braking of the driver in front, and you've got to adjust your braking accordingly. You really can't attack too hard when you're directly behind somebody on a street circuit, so it will normally end up in tears, or if you do have to release your brakes, you haven't really got anywhere to go. You've got no real runoff area to talk about. But as they slide their way out to turn number 8, de Meyer right now in the Ferrari, the Princess machine, as we like to refer to it in regards to its tyres, and the fact that when it's in the right operating window, it is an incredibly quick car. However, outside of that window, it struggles immensely typically, so therefore the Ferrari really has to be driven to perfection compared to all the others. Albeit all these GT machines require a lot of effort to master, but the Ferrari really is a unique beast of its own, as they do make the way to the end of the lap, and we leave the onboard. As we do, we leave the time of the present, and we take a look back to the start of the race, and indeed that race start for our GTE and GT3 fields. So as they made the way green flag racing, it was Barrioneuvo who dictated the run all the way to turn number 1. Took his time with the green flag start. When he got racing there, timed it very well, and it was Barrioneuvo who managed to get the jump on Pugh. And you see Thomas Pugh there in the Axis Sport BMW really being swallowed up early by Tim Perry immediately, who looked up the inside, and Graham Wildmon was right there with them. A bit further behind, that was 3 wide there, and we did see the BMW Jaden Scotton back out as he got very close between them all. Very respectful racing between all of them. Meanwhile, in the GT3 class, well, it was single file formation all the way to the start, and Adam Watson really dictated the field as they essentially got their race started on the exit of the hairpin. And well, Watson there nailed his race start very comfortably and got things underway very happily indeed. But meanwhile, we come forward in time to what happened to Andrew Fellows, and this was an error for Fellows as he was towards the back of the GTE field at the time of the incident on lap number 2. Comes into turn number 10, onto the brakes into 11. What exactly happened? Oh, could it be contact there? That was with the number 3, and that was Martin Kenyon that tapped him on the rear, and that explains how Fellows end up in the barrier initially. But then he had this happen to him at the end of the run down towards turn number 1. The rear damage will have unsettled the car slightly, but how exactly did he end up in the barriers on the exit of the first corner? Went onto the brakes. Did he miss his braking zone? He went in very hot. And as he did so, we'll try to get the car turned around. I suspect this was a reverse gear, and as he did, well, somebody's most likely... Oh, he made his own mistake there, hitting the wall, and we had to get clear of the GT3 field and then resume racing. So that explains where exactly he managed to lose his rear wing. But thankfully, he hasn't lost it all, and he's still racing. But back to live racing in good time as we come back then to Matt Hoyland and Ala Torres as these two fight over 4th place in GT3. It's Torres on the inside and the 2 Mercedes, the red one that is, and Hoyland in the white Axis SimSport car. But the Enosis Esports driver up the inside there. Classic moving to turn number 1, and Hoyland doesn't fight it too hard, but I can imagine right now Hoyland is playing bigger picture racing here, which is all he needs to do is make sure he doesn't lose the leaders, and if so, well, strategy is a very powerful tool. The only problem, of course, is that you do have the multi-class element around here, and given the fact the lap times for our GTEs and GT3s, they are only 2 seconds apart over a lap that is approximately 1 minute and 18 on average between the two classes. When you do the mathematics, we will see the fields gradually intermingle. However, they won't intermingle too quickly, so it will be of intrigue exactly when we see the GT field start to come up against the main GT3 field, and then who gets the pit stop at the right time, because pit stops and traffic could be just as valuable as being the quickest driver out on circuit today. And I can imagine that every team is going to have its strategist on the pit wall watching this race incredibly close. But as we do have a big instant for Nick Stubb, that's at turn number 1. Stubb's gone straight to the barrier there, and well, we're going to get a replay of that very soon. Meanwhile, we come to Graham Wildmon, and well, here's the man who of course kept us all waiting in qualifying, and in the end he did deliver a 4th place, and I think he was hoping there was even more out there, but he's moved into 3rd very early on versus Thomas Pugh, and he chases after Perry, and I can definitely see all the requests there. Give us Graham, they say, and Mo Parman, we can give you Graham every day of the week because he's here right now throwing everything at this, and it's good to see so many of the Soy Boys racing at fan group tuning in for Graham Wildmon as he makes his way up towards another lap. He's close behind Well, it's Perry at the moment, but Francisco Barrionuevo has already opened up a 3-second gap, so the leader is now starting to walk away. Understandably, however, Barrionuevo does have one problem he's going to have to deal with later on, and that is he's the first to come up against the traffic, whereas these drivers will not be, and that is going to be a challenge to its own, because if it was circuit Charles Villeneuve, it's a hybrid street circuit, it does have plenty of room. Here it's nowhere near as easy dealing with the traffic, and Barrionuevo is going to be the first who faces it and really will trigger off the cascade of the traffic log for everyone else in the GTE class. So therefore you can imagine these drivers actually further back will be grateful, because all they've got to deal with is each other, not the other class, at least for this time. From them, we do come a little bit further down that running order of the GTEs to Jesse Pulakainen, as he chases after a wounded Nick Stubb, and Stubb having got it wrong at turn number 1. Well, Pulakainen right now will think that he can potentially make his way into 15th place in GTE, but as we continue to see their battling build up, how exactly did Stubb find himself in that position in the first place? Here's the replay. So this was Stubb making his way down towards turn number 1, chasing at the time after the BMW M8 from Axis Sim Sport there. And as he went onto the brakes, big lock up on the rear, and the car completely came loose on him, and well, just went sliding around. Didn't actually go into the barrier, to be fair. The damage on the front of the car was from the founcing incident right at the start of the race. We did end up going straight on into a driver, and that's how Jesse Pulakainen caught up behind him very quickly. But as they come onwards towards the next lap on the live pictures, well, Rob Mackay here quite close. Can he find a way in? The answer is no at the moment. Mackay's still having to wait for Dexterous Motorsports there. And as he does so, well, we come all the way back to the front of the field. We've got a yellow flag for Hayden Miller. And well, Miller right now, he's back here in 5th place. That's the slowdown that he's burning, and that will be for track limits. He hops his way over the apex curve there, turn 1. He's cut it a bit too high there. A lot of enthusiasm for the Phoenix Racing Blue driver to go up into 2 wheels, but unfortunately that's too much of a cut for the apex curve, and he burns that slowdown quite quickly, and he'll need to do so because it will get upgraded into a drive-through penalty. Come back to Perry and Wildmon as they start to drop Pugh, and Pugh right now, it does seem as though that BMW, for all the pace he had over a single lap, might just not be able to hold on, or it could be a strategy just to fall back here and stay out of the dirty air but keep within attacking distance. As Barrionuevo now is not starting to pull away anymore, it actually seems as though Barrionuevo has set his pace to that of the cars behind. They're all lapping in the 17.2s and 17.3s are your top 4. It's a very impressive pace from all 4 of them, and therefore I think everyone is playing the mental game of trying to work out what the other's doing on strategy. We will see. This is a long way to go, and also the fact we are only 11.5 minutes into this race, and over the 60 minutes this will feel as though it's a much longer race than it really is, because the number of laps they're going to be logging over distance. This is the shortest circuit on our calendar. From them, we come back to the GT3 leaders. Here is Adam Watson. He has got Yannis Aubert behind him. Aubert still there. And the Lamborghini Huracan Evo driver, I think, hoping that today it doesn't go the way of Charles Villeneuve. We chase the leader in the early stages of the race very closely, only to find a curb in the end, unsettling the car through one of the chicanes and ends up backwards into a barrier. As William Humphrey, meanwhile, he is on the back of this, 1 second behind, and he brings Ali Torres and Matt Hoyland on with him for the ride. Is the top 5 of the class, as we then do have Chris Jennings and Pedro Luis da Silva. Luis da Silva is the man under pressure for GPX Sim Sport, because he needs to clear Jennings and he needs to get after Torres. Otherwise, Torres will give himself the opportunity to seal the championship, as our next round at Road America are a round to spare. I think the Drivers' Championship, the Teams' Championship is a very different story as they come on through. Well, right now, Luis da Silva still waiting in the wings with Harvey Wheeler for close company behind him. You see these drivers right now not really having an opportunity to poke holes in each other's races, indeed all having to wait. But speaking of waiting, it's going to be potentially a long way to the pits for Ed Juncker, who's had to take repair work to the car. But what exactly happened to him? Here's a replay. So this was your Ford Mustang driver as he made his way over the crest of Flatline Racing into the braking zone for turn number 8, with Bobby Moss behind him, went in with a lot of speed, and the rear of the car slid loose. Oh my goodness, it slid loose. Bobby Moss had no time to react, and that is how they came together there, and Ed Juncker having to tow to the pits as a result of the damage. But ladies and gentlemen, we are hearing there's been a big moment for Francisco Barrionuevo just moments ago. Here's an immediate replay of it in towards turn number 10, and as he made his way on through, what exactly has happened here? Oh, goodness me, that's a slide, and getting caught up behind the car of John Maunarich there that was going slowly. Well, Barrionuevo making a bit of contact there, not as graphic as we thought it was based on what we're getting from our telemetry data, but definitely Barrionuevo there finding the traffic and it not falling favourably to him. And well, will that not potentially upset the balance of the car? We will see. Definitely a bit of a moment, and well, as we come back to live racing, the sun comes back out and we have got plenty more. Oh my goodness, What on earth has happened there at turn number 8? That's all the GT leaders, minus Barrioneuvo, they're all in pieces. Somebody got it wrong at turn number 8 and the whole field's barreled into it. And that is all of the top, well, apart from your leader, that is second, third and fourth of the GT field in absolute disrepair. I don't believe my eyes. We know at street circuits things could go wrong, but not that wrong surely. And well, Hayden Miller now is going to be the beneficiary of this because Wildmon has to come into the pits within the next 3 laps. He's in a car that's damaged. He will have a fast repair to use. Here comes Hayden Miller into the pits as well, so he's picked up damage. They've all got damage here. Christoph Demaya, meanwhile, and stays out, and as he does so, well, the 922 driver right now, he moves up into second place, and I don't think he's going to quite believe this. Jaden Scott moves up behind him as well, so does Niels Kuhler, Liam Fraser. This is going to completely change the complexion of the Pro and Prime Teams Championships here, because you've got several drivers who are now, of course, for a huge point score, particularly in the Prime Teams. When you look at the likes, for example, Niels Kuhler, suddenly Axis and Sport Fire may open up a huge gap at the end of today, going into the final 2 rounds. Well, and say it's not so, and we're going to have a replay of what exactly happened very soon, but right now it's absolute pandemonium down the pit lane. The Soy Boys Racing are working incredibly hard on Wildmon's car to get it repaired, and I do believe Phoenix Racing Blue are giving a big inspection over Miller's car, and the same for Tim Perry's car that has had to be towed to the pit lane unless I'm mistaken. Right, here's the replay to explain, ladies and gentlemen, and well, viewer discretion advised here, it's not beautiful. So Perry was ahead, of course, of Wildmon at the time, and John Maunrich there on his inside. 2 wide, they went into 8, and, well, they came together, road was blocked, and they all came crashing into the scene of the incident. There was a big stop on the brakes there from the 44, managed to get stopped just in the nick of time, and what a nightmare moment. This was Thomas Pugh's perspective, I should say. The Axis Twin Sport Lightning driver made his way on through. Now, he won't see what's happened initially. He'll see they've gone 2 wide in, and then suddenly he'll see the contact. He's turned in already, and in the end he's got nowhere to go, and at that point it's like dominoes falling. It's just one after the other. Indeed, many of you may remember an infamous clip from Macau Grand Prix circuit all those years ago in real life racing, and well, that was a smaller version of it, as we've got even more going on here. That's Justin Niall, and that's also, I believe, Robin Noel Brown getting it wrong at the hairpin. They make the way into the pit lane. Justin Niall, being a GTE driver, much like Robin Noel Brown, they've both come to blows as well. And suddenly everything's going completely wrong at Long Beach, and well, the sun's out right now, but it's not all smiles for many of the teams, and well, that has shaken things up in GTE, as meanwhile GT3 carries on quite unabated here. As we look to your leaders, it's still Watson, Albert, Humphrey, Torres and Hoyland are your top 5, albeit there's a lot of traffic there. That is Martin Kenyon struggling along, as he's got a very damaged car and he's got to get that into the pits within the next couple of laps, because he has got the meatball flag as Albert comes into contact there with Martin Kenyon, and Yannis Albert once again, in the first 20 minutes of the race, finds himself in absolute misery with something happening, albeit it's not a tow to the pit, but Martin Kenyon's car right now, definitely, they're looking to try and get it off the road where they can. He doesn't want to tow to the pits, but Saint tells me I think it is going to have to. But as all this plays out, it's absolute craziness, and suddenly the GT3 field is hit as well, and I do apologise because I think I've put the commentator's curse on the GT3s, and unfortunately Yannis Albert being the biggest recipient of the curse. But as that all happens, well, we'll have to try and see where the field has been shaken and stirred too, because right now it is all over the place. There's Graham Wildmon just ahead of Hayden Miller with a fast repair for both cars, but they're 11th and 12th now in GTE, and I don't think that pit stop is going to be enough to change the strategies they're going to have to use today. So therefore it does mean it may mean they've had to make an extra pit stop by default, albeit they've put as much fuel as they can in those cars. Perhaps they will be able to convert this into what was their planned strategy. It's going to be on the margins here again, how early they've had to come into the pits. That's completely changed everything. And, well, right now, if you are Francisco Barrionuevo, he's going to look back at this and think that he had the nightmare behind John Maunrich at this corner at turn number 11, at the hairpin. Well, he had the nightmare of a little bit of contact, but he's not had a nightmare with regards to the fact it's not really hurt his race that much. I'm going to put a little bit of damage on the car, and he has a 15-second gap that is growing to the rest of the GTE field, as Hayden Miller has just had to be towed to the pits again. And, well, in fact, he's had to be towed to the pits the first time. I do apologise, but he's making his second visit to the pits with a damaged car. And we'll try and understand what's happened to Hayden Miller very shortly. As meanwhile, William Humphrey here is now leading. Hold up a second. He's leading GT3. We're missing Adam Watson. Where on earth has Adam Watson gone? And what I believe he's fallen down the order. There he is, coming out to turn number 8. But how exactly did he fall to 5th in GT3? Well, there's a replay that can explain. So this was Watson making his way down towards turn number 1. Comfortably ahead of Humphrey. Goes into the braking zone here. Does he just get it completely wrong? Goes in, looks absolutely fine. Oh, goodness me. And in the end, that was Bobby Moss coming out the pit after repair work to the car, I believe. In fact, he'd had a spin of his own of Bobby Moss and in the end got it wrong. And well, Adam Watson in gets it wrong, trying to line up with Bobby Moss there. Makes contact to the side and ping-pong sideways as that's the car trying to munch the grass on the fountain. I believe that was the McLaren there from Phoenix Racing Blue. Couldn't quite discern who it was. It's not Grant Miller's car. I think that might have been a different car there, but couldn't quite see. But a lot of surprises, and well, these surprises keep on coming. It is not a good set of surprises, I can tell you that, ladies and gentlemen. And I think that was Hayden Miller's car, in fact. I do apologise, it was not a McLaren, that was a Corvette. And well, it's absolute craziness continuing to unfold, and we're only 20 minutes into this race. We're still at 40 minutes on the final lap to go. And it's not over yet until the checkered flag. They always say that in motorsport, but here today it definitely could be that all the way to the very end, because a lot of drivers right now still going on. We do have both Bobby Moss and also Brandon White. They're out of their cars in the pit lane in the GT3 category. And I think we are down to 16 runners in GT3 from our starting 18 due to the incidents that have befallen them. But what's befallen them now? Will any more drama befall them later on? We're going to see over time as Yanis Aubert and Lewis Kenyon get very firm with each other. Of course, the GT3 driver ahead of the GTE. And well, the closeness to the pace of these cars, that definitely does raise a point here, which is if a GT falls behind the GT3, it is going to be very hard for them to pass. And there is no expectation that the GT3 just steps aside, particularly if they're both on the lead lap. You can see Kenyon there flashing his lights, trying to send a message to Aubert, which is, can you please move aside? But right now, Aubert is just holding his line. Kenyon does have the faster straight line speed than the GTE. They do have the best part of approximately about 50 more horsepower, and also they have a higher top end with less aero on the car, and that does enable him to get ahead. But Aubert, they're really dictating when Kenyon's going to come on through, and not just letting him go. And well, Aubert will have lost a bit of time to Matt Hoyland, his next GT3 runner in front of him, and he has also still maintained a gap to Adam Watson or thereabouts right behind. With everything that's happened, it's also important to note that Ale Torres is now into second place in GT3. He's got Graham Wildmon right behind him, and Wildmon here will surely slipstream his way past down the back straight. In fact, he's got a nice long run here, and Torres will be hoping that Wildmon can prove to be a little bit of a nuisance to William Humphrey. And at this rate, Torres may take the win, and with that win, given that Luis De Silva is currently down in 7th place, it's only going to add on with a bit more certainty that come Road America, he only needs to score a small handful of points in order to take the crown. Then again, it can all change in a moment's notice, and that's what our drivers have definitely found out here today. As meanwhile, we come back to Matthew Croft. We ride on board with the 113. Maxis in Sport Ice. He chases the top 10 in the GT3 class. In front of him, Archie Williams and Dean Sheesby. All three drivers so far have been a race without drama. Well, there's almost a bit of drama there as Matthew Croft gives a light kiss to the rear of Williams' car there. I think Archie Williams taking a bit too much apex curb and the car getting pinned up onto the two wheels. Well, as he now makes his way onwards. Right now, Matthew Croft here, close but not close enough, and that little bit of contact has just reset him a bit, and he heads down towards turn number 1. But Joe Glass is 5.5 seconds behind, and he's not really close enough to get involved in this at this moment. So therefore, it's going to be Croft who's got a little bit of peace behind, no pressure on him, other than to try and make a move as gradually as he possibly can. Dean Sheesby, the 9th place runner at the head of this trio, and he seems to be struggling a little bit for pace at the point of time for the Moonshiners Racing Club team. All three drivers there having their strengths and weaknesses on display, and therefore nobody really gaining or losing. But gaining the place, that's Graham Wildmon overall now up into 10th place, ahead of William Humphrey, makes about the inside there of Humphrey in towards turn number 9, gets ahead of the GT3 leader, and well, Wildmon right now back into clear road, but he has got a 9-second gap to close down versus Jesse Pulakainen. He's got plenty of drivers to make his way past before all is said and done, but you can believe me when I say that Graham Wildmon has got the bit between his teeth, and well, he knows that he's on a slippery slope. It's a downhill slope potential in his championship, but he's not going to fall down the slope. He is going to choose how he descends down it and try to chase down as many points as he can in GTE, albeit I can imagine the team right now pretty running the numbers to understand how exactly can they get themselves onto an optimum strategy, given the fact they've already had to make one visit to the pit and exhaust a fast repair. Well, that's only what the team will know, as we then come up to your 2nd place run in GTE of Christophe Demaille, and we can see the Frenchman here under growing pressure from Jaden Scotton, who makes his way out the hairpin, and we ride on board with the Flatline Racing X machine. As he powers his way along here, stepping aside, being your Ferrari, your wounded Ferrari, of Martin Kenyon. Jaden Scott in here right now, I think, just trying to stay with Demai. You can see that Ferrari keeping the gap at a rather comfortable 8/10. It's BMW, of course, not really a cornering car and not known for its prowess under braking. And theoretically, it does have the worst brakes of all the GT machines, whereas the Porsche has the best and the Ferrari is a close second. And Scott in here right now, just really having to use the weight of the BMW to try and throw himself over the curbs. That's the one advantage it does have. It's a bit more stable over curbs, particularly raised ones, compared to some of its rivals. And that's where you're seeing the number 97 driver here looking a bit more happy with the way he can approach the corners compared to the Ferrari in front of him. However, that Ferrari in the hands of Demai is looking very quick, and you would have convinced me if you said that is Lowen Stitchby in the car, because the two have very similar driving styles in the fact they both are very smooth at the wheel and they can be aggressive when they need to be. No change here. Scott, and it comes towards the end of his current lap. Dance the way into the hairpin. Behind them, Neil's cooler there. Well, he has got a bit of traffic in front of him, but the fourth place GT driver in the Axis SimSport Fire Corvette, well, he'll be very happy to be moving closer and closer towards a potential podium finish. Liam Fraser then is a bit further behind. Fraser and Max Wheeler, they're starting to look closer and closer together, so we could see some sparks fly between them. We've not seen them fight all season long. Particularly Liam Fraser, normally qualifying a bit further down the order compared to Wheeler, but today it is Wheeler who actually qualified further down to Fraser. And, well, it's going to be Fraser making the way around the outside there of a slightly wounded Phoenix Racing Red machine of none other than Grant Miller, who is effectively a lap down now. And that is just overall, not in GT3. But Grant Miller still 14th in GT3 and looking to chase some rather precious points for the team. He now has to deal with the fact that he has the growing presence in his rearview mirror of Max Wheeler. Although I don't think he's going to make it hard for Max. He'll just simply hold his racer line and let the 3WR Corvette get ready to move. Not into turn 6 and 7, although Miller does need to make it a lot easier for the GT driver and just lets it roll on by as he heads in towards turn number 8. Going down the order then into what will be the GT3s overall. Well, William Humphrey has a bit of pressure growing on him because he was breaking away from Alex Torres and Matt Hoyland, but Torres and Hoyland are now closed back up. So it does seem as though the grazing good at racing BMW, for all its pace, now starting to be hit a little bit of a brick wall here when it comes to being able to run away outright. Although Alex Torres here, I think, is trying to get the hurry-up game on, respecting the fact that the GT field is now starting to pick its way through the GT3s. And we are getting closer and closer towards potential pit stop territory. And this race being a one-stop for at least the GT3s, if not the GTs as well. And that is why Torres, I think, has now turned up the wick a little bit. And Humphrey, meanwhile, controlling the pace. But it being a street circuit, overtaking is a lot more difficult compared to most venues. And that's one thing that Humphrey can use to his advantage there, as Torres gets very close at the hairpin. But if he makes the contact to the rear of Humphrey, so long as Humphrey's not brake checking him in any description or driving erratically, well, all the blame would point towards the Enosis Esports Mercedes. And Humphrey, what he's trying to do right now, I suspect, is just simply lift and coast into a lot of these braking zones and save plenty of fuel and the tyre life. So that way when he comes out the pit lane, he can go full attack and really take the fight to Torres if needed, as Matt Hoyland closes up. But they find a bit of traffic into the fountain. That is Grant Miller, and that's going to cause all three of your GT3 leaders to queue up here as Miller steps aside. Behind that's Lewis Kenyon, who's trying to find his way past them. But we ride on board now with Matt Hoyland here for Axis SimSport Lightning, who's had a very strong run so far. As we say hello there to Josh Cohen Racing, who's cheering on the Axis SimSport teams. And Hoyland here being one of many of their drivers. As he comes out to turn number 6, well, it does seem as though he's got the aces up his sleeve here. He can choose exactly when he wants to pit. He can also choose exactly how aggressive he wants to play behind. Albeit here comes Lewis Kenyon, who I think says, right, I'm going to play my hand, which is to make my way on through up the inside. So as they come towards us here at turn number 9, you will see Kenyon now ahead of Hoyland. And Hoyland on his deputising today. Well, understandably here, he wants to try and keep the car in the best possible piece for his teammates. Also wants to try and impress and make the team very happy as Ali Torres up the inside there of William Humphrey. Through the hairpin they go, rubbing paint aplenty, and they'll be exchanging insurance numbers after that one. But as they make the way down towards turn number 1, well, Humphrey's still ahead for now, but that Mercedes has just got so much straight line speed. As you can see there, Torres coming across there, a little bit more elbows to Humphrey. Humphrey's trying to hold on here as Torres comes across. They're really rubbing. Contact between the two of them, and Torres goes straight on, deep into the corner, and well, it's going to be William Humphrey who holds the place. Matt Matt Hoyland moves into second, and Yanis Albert and Adam Watson coming through. Where does Torres recover to? In the end, he's still getting it turned around. And for the Inosis Esports driver right now, he'll be fuming about that one. He'll feel as though he got the job done as he looks to get things back on the road, but it drops him all the way down to 8th place in class, and it puts a lot of traffic between him and the rest of the field as the race leader, his teammate, that's the overall leader, Francisco Barrionuevo, puts a lap on him. And well, as much as he'll feel in the moment, he'll feel very frustrated that actually saw an opportunity. I would say personally, perhaps was it really worth going for it when you know all you need to do is to beat your championship rival? And we'll get you a replay very shortly, ladies and gents, with that battle, because goodness me, what a battle it was. But definitely I think it's going to be potentially one of the defining points of the Inosis Esports driver season. And here's the replay explaining how it all began. So as they made their way into the hairpin, here's the on-board, and what we'll see is that William Humphrey, in the end, does get it a bit wrong here coming to the corner. So Torres goes to the dive up the inside, but the problem is Humphrey decides to stick his nose back around the outside, and Humphrey's entitled to be fair. He did make the corner, he ran it deep and V-shaped the apex. So Torres here, using the straight line speed and that inside line of the Mercedes, he was able to get on through. But as they then made the way down, it was door rub to door rub. Torres coming across there to respect the pit exit line, and with that little bit of contact between himself and Humphrey, it sent him on his way, and Humphrey was never going to give him more than the minimum amount of space. I think Torres wanted a little bit more space, to be fair, and both drivers, I suspect, will be called to the stewards after race to explain exactly what's gone on. But that's what happened between them, and William Humphrey, your GT3 leader at the moment, as meanwhile Alex Torres into the pit lane. I suspect that will be for his scheduled stop, and he's decided with what's happened, he may as well get the pit stop out of the way rather than try to go any deeper, so he has essentially now squandered several places in this race that he's going to have to try and find a magical way of regaining. But from them, we come to Graham Wildmon, who's on the attack here. Let's not forget about him as he goes from inside to around the outside of Jesse Pulakainen. And that's a move up to 8th place then for Wildmon for Soy Boys Racing. His next target is going to be Robin Mackay, who's in a Ford GT 5 seconds up the road. There is the Dexterous Motorsports Ford GT. And Wildmon right now on a mission here as he flashes the lights absolutely vehemently on the back there of the Corvette of Matthew Bacon. A Corvette C8R GTE, which Bacon is going to step aside as soon as he can. There's Torres leaving the pit lane. And, well, for Wildmon, he'll be hoping that he can clear that GT3 quite quickly. And Torres will sit in his rear view mirror. And I can imagine he will not necessarily step aside, but won't make it hard for Wildmon by the time they get even to the back straight, or even before that in the run-up towards turn number 6. Wildmon right now, 9, all he's got to do is play the patience game. Here he comes out the corner. Torres there, holding his line. Will Wildmon go up the inside here? Yes, he will. He decides it's worth it going earlier rather than later. And Graham Wildmon there does clear the car that's now a lap down. Coming in towards turn number 8, his next target on Mackay is 4.7 seconds. He is gaining them little by little. But in clear air, I think he's now going to gain absolutely hugely so as he heads towards the end of this current lap. Looking to William Humphrey, well, your GT3 leader after his altercation with Torres. You can see it's Matt Hoyland still 7 tenths behind him. We've got a 2.5 second gap to Yanis Albert, who's really coming back into this race now as a result of the drama. There's still more to go, and I can see many of you there saying in the YouTube chat that Graham Wildmon can still win this, and you are right, to be fair, because of the fact all it takes is a small mistake from our race leader. It takes a mistake from any driver or a big incident into one of the tight corners, as we saw even in the fountain section, and suddenly this race can be blown wide open. So therefore it is not over until they see that checker flag. So if you're sat there right now thinking, well, the battling's calming down and we've had so many incidents, so surely this race now is really done and dusted, it's really not, ladies and gents. But Long Beach, it's one of those circuits where it really does deliver, and that's why year in, year out, we do have the IMSA 2.4 hours of the Acura Grand Prix at Long Beach. We do have an IndyCar visit here on a regular basis. Right now, it is, of course, GT3s and GTEs in virtual machinery, making a very, very intense visit, if that. As these drivers continue to impress and push each other hard, we're still waiting to see when those pit stops will come, but we are very much into the second half of the race now. 27 minutes left on the clock, and most drivers yet to pit. They're all trying to run their fuel tanks to the limit. Speaking of one who's on the limit right now, is your race leader overall in GT of Francisco Barrionuevo. As he comes down towards turn number 6 again, he does have in front of him there the LS Racing GTE, the Porsche in particular of Adam Watson there. It's Pete Piver who steps aside, and next up will be the GT3 of Adam Watson that you'll see the best part of a few seconds up the road. That's about 8 seconds. It's already coming in towards turn number 9. And well for our race leader of Barrioneuvo. He'll be grateful to have some clear space with which to try and extend his lead even more. He's got a 19-second lead, with the second place man being Jayden Scotton. But right now, he's continued to show a very good amount of pace, and we're considering that coming into this round for Jayden Scotton, his previous best result was a 5th place all the way back in rounds 2 and 4. You can understand he'll be very happy to be on the podium at this rate for Flatline Racing X, and Neil's Cooler the same, who's here a further 7.5 seconds behind. But both of these drivers really doing very well and making the most of the opportunity presented to them. And that's the thing, you've got to be in the right place at the right time to pick up the places where everybody else drops the ball. Right, dropping the ball to the court of Pedro Luis da Silva. He's still chasing after Chris Jennings and has not been able to find an inroad so far versus Jennings. I can imagine the GPX Sport Onyx driver here very patiently waiting as we jump on board, looking down over the front bumper. Now, quite interesting here, because when we look from this camera, we're looking down on the over the windscreen essentially and towards the front bumper. You might be wondering, where exactly is the engine then? Well, it's behind the driver, and that's why the advantage of mid-engine rear-wheel drive. But what it also means is that this McLaren does have a very unique seating position, and this camera shows it in the fact that the front of the car slopes down below where the driver sits. The driver's got very good forward visibility compared to most of the GT3s, and well, Luis da Silva right now will be grateful for that visibility, because it will help him going through a lot of these corners that are relatively unsighted, but even more so when you're running this close to the back of a fellow GT3. Speaking of which, that is Chris Jennings in front, the Axis Sim Sport driver in the Porsche 992, who's holding on to 5th here and on course for a season best performance if he finishes where he currently is, whereas Luis da Silva wants to get through and wants to get onto the podium. That's much easier said than done, as we do have Christophe Demay into the pit lane, so he's coming in from 4th place in GTE. We may see some more pit stops then around the corner, because if he's being serviced, then there's going to be more on the cards surely, albeit it's a very long pit stop for Demay, the best part of 41.5 seconds. And I wonder there whether the team have accidentally given him new tyres, because I looked at the pit times, the majority of drivers have had relatively short pit stops for a large number that have pitted. Then again, that could all be to do to the fact they've had to come into the pit sooner rather than later. As Jayden Scotton's in from 2nd place, and his car being served as well, as we do see more of our GT drivers carry on their merry way. Nick Starr, one of the many, and in a Ford GT that's definitely going to need a fast repair, and he does come on in because of that damage he picked up right at the start of the race, with what was a bit of an opportunistic moment here into the fountain, where he went very tight on the inside. Well, Jayden Scotton's left the pit lane, a 9-second stop, and well, Graham Wildmon has just jumped Jayden Scotton. It's not over yet, ladies and gentlemen, then, for Graham Wildmon. That pit stop he took, well, that was enough fuel potentially for him to get to the end of the race. Could he pull off a bit of a miracle here? I'm not necessarily saying the win, but the podium could be a potential prospect here, given the fact that everybody in front of him has yet to pit. And when we do have a total pit time in the region of 45 seconds as a minimum here, the fastest pit stop, end-to-end being from Lewis Kenyon at 45 seconds. Well, if you take 40 seconds off of Wildman's time right now, it puts him 13 seconds off the leader and well within reach of 2nd place as a minimum. So this undercut is building for Wildman. Barrioneuvo will know that it's building, but he'll also be aware of the fact that in theory he should have done more than enough to make the time happen. As Nick Stubbs had a big... Oh, there's been a crunch to the wall for Stubb. You can see that on the front of the car, and Andrew Fellows as well. Something's gone very wrong for the pair of them. Stubbs into the pit lane for repair work, but here's the replay. So it was Nick Stubb firstly making his way on through. The cameraman caught up to him, then coming in towards turn number 11, and as he did, what exactly went wrong? Well, not much. He just had to come straight into the pits. Andrew Fellows just got it wrong in the rear of the picture. So 2 separate incidents there. But Andrew Fellows had a bit of a nightmare moment, it would seem. This is what happened to the Flatline Racing X driver. Came into the corner, and as he did so, onto the brakes. A lot of speed. Went to turn through, and unfortunately found out the steering lock of the car was not supple enough to make the corner. So that's why he made his way to the barrier. But for Nick Stubb, he's had a contact with a wall somewhere, and we just haven't seen it. Alternatively, a suspension rod has been hit hard as a result of a bump in the road, alternatively a curb. But he emerges from the pit lane. He will have converted that into his strategic pit stop, and Stubb rejoins the race and then down in 9th place. So well behind the likes of Lewis Kenyon and also Jayden Scotton and Graham Wildmon, but he'll be happy that he's still well inside the GTE top 10. But as we do come back to these live racing pictures, Christophe Demay, well, he had a 41-second stop. I can imagine the team changed the tyres on that car, so therefore what was looking to be a certain run for a top 5 and not a podium in GTE now has gone the way of potentially trying to hunt a top 10 here. Well, in GT, you never change the tyres unless the race is beyond normally 90 minutes. And we have seen this season all of our 90-minute races, but the GT drivers have tried to stay on one set of tyres all the way through, whereas these tyres, they do last a long period of time. And we can definitely comfortably do 60 minutes on them, even if they are starting to look a little bit threadbare towards the end of the 60 minutes. And over 90 minutes, it's the final 30 minutes, which really comes a game of survival, because compared to GT3, the GTs cannot change tyres and have fuel put in the car at the same time. The regulations do say they have to do one at a time, whereas the GT3s, they can do both simultaneously, and that is why the pit stops are so much longer for GTs when they do go for the full service. But not putting new boots on the car is the aim of the game, and Francisco Barrionuevo will know all about that as the Enosis Esports driver comes up behind the man who at one point was leading GT3 of Adam Watson. He's your fourth place GT3 driver right now, and we can see here Barrionuevo just getting ready to find a way through. Albeit this will cost him a little bit of time, being caught up behind, but not too much. But he also knows the fact there's much more at stake than just trying to find his way past the GT3, and it is the patience here to make sure that he holds on to the GTE lead. Boy, he flashes lights, looks up the inside of turn 6 and 7, and Barrionuevo here goes on in, and Adam Watson in contact with him. Well, now that's going to be an interesting one, because Barrionuevo would argue, I signalled, I looked up the inside, so why did Watson turn in? Watson would argue back, well, I never said to him that he could just go up the inside there, and he's the one who's forced the contact on me. So two very different interpretations there, potentially. Of course, that's what we're theorising. That's not what they're necessarily saying right now. Barrionuevo there finds himself in another bit of contact, but thankfully gets away with it again as he makes his way on around. Well, definitely right now the Enosis Esports team will be counting off the 9 lives he's using in that Corvex. He's used at least 2 of them, if not more. He carries on his way. Here is your GT3 leader of William Humphrey, still leading this race, but Matt Hoyland is with him, and Yannis Albert is closing. Albert not quite visible until you look beyond the timing tower, and there he is. So right now a top 3 of GT3 that are very tightly nipped and tucked together, and understandably at this point their race has been knitted into one pack of 3. From them it's all up and down inside the pit lane at the moment. We've got plenty of cars being serviced, and we've also got plenty of cars that are looking to fight after being serviced, including Thomas Pugh and Christophe Demey. Demey trying to pick his way past Pugh, and also Justin Noel, who is right in front of him for SJS Racing. And Demey in the Ferrari will be fancying his chances as we ride on board. Going in towards turns 2 and 3, there's not really going to be a way through at the moment. He's going to still wait as he weaves his way around through the opening segment of corners. You can definitely see the body language here of the arriving driver by RA Motorsports car. I definitely think this is a car that's had new tyres put on it, because he's looking very quick through those corners, whereas Noah in particular seems to be struggling, and Pugh right now seems to be stuck to the pace of the car in front of him. They have all pitted, so therefore this is going to be a battle on circuit to the end, with 19 minutes and a final lap left on the clock. And Demey there using the cutback line at turn number 8 to try and get a bit more speed down this back straight. But it is the game of follow the leader, and everyone in the toe of each other here is not really going to gain. As Demey looks up the inside, he goes for quite a late lunge there. That was very dicey. You could see what he was trying to do. What he was trying to say to Thomas Pugh is, I'm going to go for it and get Pugh to outbrake himself. But then he timed it perfectly, so as Pugh turned in and said, well, if you're not alongside me and you hit me, it's you who gets called to the stewards room, not me. Demey had just given himself about half a meter's worth of gap in order to make sure he didn't make that contact. As he powers away along, well, Pugh goes defensive here, down the start finish straight, but this Ferrari is looking very quick. The BMW not quite up to full speed as of yet. Can Demey get it done under braking? Yes, he can. That will move him into 10th place at GTE. Next target is Justin Noel, and right now the SJS Racing driver under pressure, no doubt about it, on home soil here to try and bring home a 9th place. But I get the feeling the Frenchman in the Ferrari has got other things to say about this as they roll their way around, and this of course is their 32nd tour of the circuit under race pace. He's definitely looking to be one of these races right now. Where for Noel, oh, that was a scratch to the wall there. Just Noel hitting the wall and entry there into turn number 6. That's going to cost him all the momentum over 7 into 8. He's going to go defensive here. He'll get away with it, but he won't want to keep doing that because that will damage the side panelling there of the right hand side of the car, and it can start to have an effect on the aero balance. As he comes down the back straight, here comes Demey. Here comes Pugh as well. Pugh with the speed in that BMW once it does get into its top gear. Looking threatening, but not enough road to be able to really utilise it. And Noel just closing off the doors there. The Demey is trying to push open. Through that hairpin they come, and he'll be grateful here that he has got the toe of his teammate Archie Williams, until he hasn't, with Williams tucking into the pit lane. And therefore these drivers all staying comfortably close together. As off camera, Graham Wildmon in 4th place. Well, he has come out behind Francisco Barrionuevo, who has served his one and only pit stop. Barrionuevo is in 2nd with an 18-second gap to Wildmon. We're still waiting for Kula, who is 1st, and Wheeler, who is 3rd in GTE, to pit. So we're keeping an eye on that in the background, ladies and gentlemen. But right now it's looking as though your top 2 in GT, when all the pit stops are done, will be Barrionuevo and then Wildmon. And in 3rd place, theory would say it's either going to be Kula or Scotton, but we will confirm that in due time. There's a big side there from Justin Noel, and he tries to just make sure he stays ahead as he gets very close to the wall there. It's turn number 6. He's under a lot of pressure right now. He is not feeling happy in this car, and I think he's trying to understand how much quicker he go. DeMite immediately sees it here and is now flashing his lights as well. That is not to try and tell him to get out of the way. That is to try and distract, because he can see that Noel is running so close to some of these walls that if he hits one of them, that car's going to be in pieces. And here comes DeMite out the inside. He uses the speed of the Ferrari this time and makes it work successfully up to 9th place. And now Thomas Pugh is going to have the unenviable task of trying to pass what is the number 15 Corvette. As they come around through that hairpin, well, Pugh may have a really good run here. We know we're having an absolute brush with all again. Indeed, right now there's more paint on that Corvette on the walls here at Long Beach than there is on the car at this rate, and that's not a critique. That shows you how hard he's having to drive to hold on to his positions. He's trying to use every inch of the road, but sometimes he's using an inch too many. There's no value-added tarmac here as they come down in towards turn number 1. Unfortunately, Pugh not quite able to look for the move. So instead, they stay as they were, and coming back to your GT3 leaders, William Humphrey and Matt Hoyland, they are still absolutely glued together. As off camera, Ali Torres has pitted, and Torres has come out in 10th place. Now that's interesting because he's dropped quite a way down. Of course, we did have the moment for Torres earlier on where he did end up going a bit deep at turn number 1 as a result of his back and forth between himself and also William Humphrey. But to go from what was effectively 7th down to 10th, that's a surprise. Well, he's got 4 seconds to Archie Williams. I wonder whether the team decides to change some of the tyres on the car to give him a better car towards the end, because he had a 21-second stop, and that normally means he's had 2 tyres changed. And I suspect, given the clockwise nature of this circuit, he would have had the left-hand side tyres changed, because there's more right-handers than there are left-handers. So therefore, that means the left-hand side tyres do the greater work. But pit stop season is here now for your leaders of GT3. Hoyland and Humphrey are in. Jennings stays out then to go on to lead the GT3 race, albeit this will be temporary because he has yet to pit. But it's a sign of the Axis Sport driver here, and the team have done a brilliant job in getting their driver to save more fuel than anybody else. And right now Jennings will be happy to have a bit of clear track in front of him and look to try and certify himself as a top 5 finisher, if not a 3rd place finisher in the GT3 category today. Whilst all this is going on, we've got Nils Kula and Max Wheeler into the pit lane. They're making their way on down, and as they do, well, where exactly is Graham Wildmon? Here he is. He's going to return to 2nd place, no doubt about that. Then the next question is, where is Jaden Scotton? And Scotton is making his way down the start finish straight now. We look to the blimp camera here because Nils Kula is leaving the pits very gradually. He's got a long way to the pit limiter line. Jaden Scotton is just coming on past him, so that confirms Scotton is up to 3rd in GTE. He is on course for his maiden podium of the season if this continues, after he chased down a podium, of course, at the circuit of the Americas much earlier in the season. But it does look as though for Jaden Scotton this could be the round where he finally gets the job done, as Lewis Kenyon takes 4th place over Nils Kula there. Kula comes out right behind him, and Kenyon there in the Biltong and Bangers Corvette will now know the pressure is on there to finish 4th, with Kula only a second off of him. But we come back to Graham Wildmon as he pushes onwards. The undercut doing enough to move into 2nd, but not doing enough to jump in ahead of Barrioneuvo. But right now, I think they are reliant on something going wrong for the race leader. But credit where it's due to Soy Boys Racing. They converted what was a nightmare moment with that major incident at turn number 8, which collected 2nd, 3rd and 4th in GTE of what was Tim Perry, Wildmon and Hayden Miller. Oh, Thomas Pugh as well was caught up in that. So your top was 2nd through to 5th. In fact, they've been able to convert it into a pit stop that they've used as the strategic stop, and he's been able to come back out and in 2nd. But he needs this man, Francisco Barrionuevo, to have a nightmare race beyond this point. And well, right now nobody wants to see anybody get it wrong, but it's going to be Lady Luck that's the delta, and that requires a nightmare race for the leader and what will be a dream come true for the man in 2nd. Still plenty of time out there, 12 minutes left on the clock. And well, Wildmon will just keep pushing on until then, whereas Barrionuevo right now can't lose concentration, because a lapse of concentration is where the mistakes will be made. Now, if you're looking at this group in front, I think, is that Yannis Albert? who's in the middle of your top three for GT3, you are not mistaken. Yannis Albert, who pitted much earlier compared to William Humphrey and Matt Hoyland, he has re-emerged in second place. He has siphed in between the two of them. So Yannis Albert, you can take him out of the running pack, but you can't take him out of the lead battle in GT3 class. And this is a very impressive drive from the Arrive and Drive by RA Motorsports driver at the moment, with Humphrey and Hoyland sandwiching him. Matt Hoyland here, I think, now back into a bit of a watch and wait stance. Because out of the three, it was Albert and Humphrey who were the faster two, and Hoyland was really the driver, was a bit slower, but was the more strategic thinking driver here. But with the strategy element now done, well, what will come next? Pedro Luis da Silva, meanwhile, he has moved into fourth. He has jumped Chris Jennings, who went the longest on strategy in the GT3. Well, Pedro Luis da Silva was one of the early stoppers, and that undercut has worked out very nicely for him because it's brought him to fourth. As Chris Jennings, you can see in the rear of the picture, and he's got Harvey Wheeler only 1.1 seconds behind, with Archie Williams then a further 3 seconds behind. So the GT3 at top 5 has definitely been shaken, and Harvey Wheeler now is starting to come into a bit more of an element of his own as this race heads into its final 10 minutes. But goodness me, what a race it has been. After the early incidents that we saw on the opening couple of laps, all the way through to this now, it's been a race that you couldn't make up. And we've had some big names regaled to the back of the running field, including Tim Perry, who, after repair work for the first time and then had to go in for secondary repairs, and, well, Perry, after a 6.5-minute pit stop to get that number 83 car repaired, he's running 18th place here in GTE. It really will become his drop scorer of the season this round, barring, of course, any other misfortune later on in the season. But Perry, well, he's in it to win it, like they all are, but this is definitely going to upset his chances, potentially, of finishing second in the GT Championship, and he might be having to think about consolidating third place. From there, we come back to Liam Fraser, Matthew Croft, and what is there? None other than John Malnerich in front, and Malnerich being, at this point, I believe, a lap down, whereas Fraser and Croft fighting each other here. Well, it's two different classes of machine, and Liam Fraser in the GT would like to pick his way through. As Malnerich steps aside, Matthew Croft here does no such thing in the lead in BMW for Axis Simsport, and the Moonshotters Racing Club BMW M8 GT looks to remove as all. That's Malnerich sideways into the barrier there. The rear of that Ford Mustang coming loose again, and turn number 8 and John Malnerich do not go well together today. That's one thing for certain. As Malnerich picks himself back up, but a little bit bruised there on the rear left-hand side of the car, and I can imagine that's only going to make it even less steady to drive. But steadying himself up at the very front of the GT3 field, William Humphrey still needs to hold on for a bit longer. He's going to have about another 6 to 7 laps of racing to do here. And Yannis Albert continues to breathe down his neck with Matt Hoyland for close company. And well, when it is another 18 seconds then to Pedro Luis da Silva, right now this top three, they'll feel as though they're locked in all the way to the finish from their close running. And Humphrey just doing the right thing, which is to maintain track position. Let's see if anyone fancies a move up the inside. As we cut on board to the front bumper of the Arrive and Drive by RA Lamborghini. And it does seem as though right now Albert, well, he hasn't quite got the straight line speed that BMW, but he's got everything in the corners. But this is the problem. If he can't stay incredibly close on the run out of the hairpin all the way down towards turn number 1, by the time he makes up the delta, coming into what is these corners, he's just not close enough then to entertain the move. And in these corner sequences, there's no real overtaking opportunity to present itself unless the man in front makes a gratuitous error. Coming out the fountain section through turns 4 and 5, you see the sparks flying there from the undertrail of that BMW M4. So low to the ground, these cars as well. They have to fine-tune the ride height, because of course they want them to be as low as possible to reduce the amount of air that goes onto the car, and therefore the amount of drag that's presented. But go too low and the car will rebound off of the tarmac or off the curbs, and the car has a probability of bottoming out, where essentially the whole bottom of the car scrapes off of a road surface or a curb surface, and it can cause the car to start behaving very unpredictably. It can even send it straight on into a wall. Well, they're here again, that's seeing that straight line speed deficit really pronounced. And well, behind him, of course, we look back to the Mercedes and Matt Hoyland. 3 different manufacturers inside this top 3, all within a second in totality. It's brilliant to see that balance of performance, so impressive. But as they make the way now out of that hairpin, well, car going straight on, that is Andrew Fellows, who's gone very deep at the hairpin. He steers clear there to avoid making things worse for anybody else. These 3 all still together here as they come onto the next lap. As they make the way down, we look to Jesse Pullakainen, who's already down at turn number 1. He's still got Rob Mackay chasing after him, and the Panda Split Motorsports green driver on course for an 11th place here, unless Mackay has anything to say about it. They are in a little bit of a lonely battle with Justin Noel, 17 seconds up the road. and also a lap ahead of the pair at this point in time. It's credit where it's due to Pulakainen and Mackay. They've both gained 6 places since the start in the class, those 6 places overall. I think they'll be very happy how this race has gone. The fact they're both in course for some good points to their teams today and could help their teams out in their respective teams' championships. But coming to Adam Watson and Dean Sheesby, it's the battle of the BMWs down the start for this straight. And that's going to be Watson getting up the inside as Sheesby flashes lights there. I'm not sure if that's to try and distract or to say, well done, take the place, let's not fight. But either way, Adam Watson now up into 9th place in GT3. His next target is Ale Torres. And well, how about this? Ale Torres in 8th place, Pedro Luis da Silva in 4th place. This is going to feel like quite the reversal compared to last time out at Circuit Charles Villeneuve, where Torres in the end only just finished ahead of Luis da Silva. That's all we needed to do. But Luis da Silva will get a bit of a lifeline here today as we look to the man who we're talking about. The only problem is that lifeline is not as big as he would like it to be. And bearing in mind the gap to the championship lead was 81 points coming into this round. Well, this set of results will reduce that gap by approximately what will be 25 points. It's still a big gap to claw down in 2 rounds, but Luis da Silva has not given up. And if drama were to befall Torres in, say, round number 9 at Road America or our season finale at Watkins Glen, well, Luis da Silva just needs to be there and he can steal things away. Keep in mind, of course, there are trophies up for grabs with regards to the Pro-Am and Teams Championships and also in the Drivers' Championships as well. So plenty of trophies to go around. And right now, Luis da Silva doesn't want to just settle for a 2nd place trophy. He wants the winner's trophy, and you can't blame him. But Harvey Wheeler, he chased after Chris Jennings, and he has been gradually gaining on Jennings little by little as Jennings finds himself a little bit of traffic in front in the form of Tim Perry. Or should we say Perry has been able to find his way past quite recently to unlap himself. But the point being that Jennings right now has to muscle his way through some dirty air, and Wheeler is now starting to get very much dialed in with 5 minutes of the race left to go. As they come down in towards turn 6 and 7. Well, the 3-Wheeler racing driver right now pushing hard, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as get close and make the move, because something tells us Chris Jennings at this point, given his prowess in GT3 machines, it's going to make that Porsche even more wide than usual. Down the back stretch they come, and we can see Wheeler there in the 86. He's looking quick, he's looking fast, but can he find a way in this time? No, he can't, although Jennings does have a very slow run off the apex of turn number 9. In towards 10-11 he comes, and right now Wheeler trying to look for the cutback here, but Jennings just parks it nicely on apex, and therefore is able to pull away. That Porsche has so much traction over the rear wheels, and Harvey Wheeler made to wait again as the gap reopens to 7/10 of a second. From them then, we come back to your leader overall. Here's Barrioneuvo, 21.5 seconds ahead of Graham Wildmon, and gap being matched between the two of them at the moment, with Wildmon exchanging lap times with Barrioneuvo as if it's going out of style. They're nowhere near the fastest laps of the race that were set much earlier on. Barrioneuvo owns that accolade with 17.01, almost in the 16s under race trim, and Wildmon's fastest lap was 17.22. Barrioneuvo here really has been something else, as he comes down then to go on to a 44th lap. And well, as he does make his way on, he'll have this one plus another 2 most likely. And at the end of it, well, there's going to be a big smile on his face. 9, he returns to winning ways, and he consigns himself to what could be a championship crown that inches just a little bit closer. But make no mistake, Graham Wildmon is still pushing. He is throwing everything at this for as long as he can, and he's not going to give up. I can imagine if we are to talk to him after today, he'll talk about what exactly happened at turn number 8 early on, but he'll also talk about the fact he's not going to give up until the very last lap of the final race, because right now, the Ford GT driver, he's doing the best possible he can to mitigate the damage. Having started in 4th place, to finish 2nd and to be only behind your championship rival and leader, well, that is the best you can do if you're not the winner yourself. Jaden Scotton. We have Lewis Kenyon, who is growing in the background. Kenyon just took a whole second out of Scotton on that lap, but the gap is still 3.7 seconds. As Lewis Kenyon for Bills on Bangers has to pick his way past all the traffic that I think Scotton found on the previous lap. So that might explain why the lap times are so notably different. But Kenyon's going to find that this lap has been compromised, whereas Scotland's previous lap was compromised. The Littleton and Bangers driver here, I don't think he's going to have enough time to close down Scotton unless Scotton makes a complete ham sandwich at something along the way. And Niels Cooler, meanwhile, well, he's a further 8.5 seconds back. He's on course for a 5th place here, and he's looking very happy in this position. And I do believe for Niels, if he pulls this off, it is going to be his best result of the season, with his previous best being a 7th place all the way back in round number 4. So he'll be finishing 5th, and he'll be very pleased with that. We come from him to a bit of battling in the GT field further back. This is Stubb versus Pugh, and Thomas Pugh right now, you've got to feel for. In fact, this has been a race that's gone backwards once, it's then gone backwards twice, and right now he finds himself all over the back of the Ford GT of Nick Stubb and can't find a way past it too easily, with that BMW just not suited for the race pace here, even though Pugh put it second on the grid when he had an absolute lightning lap in qualifying, but it's just not worked out over successive race distance. Nick Stubb, meanwhile, has had a Ford GT that's only got faster as the day has gone on. As your GT3 leaders, we're still Humphrey, Albert and Hoyland together. They are as we left them the best part of 6 minutes ago. William Humphrey still holding on here. Albert right now, well, a minute left on the clock, and our GTE leader is past these drivers. The GTE leader of Barrioneuvo is going on to a final lap shortly, so these guys will know they've got this lap plus one more to go. And well, right now William Humphrey has done everything right in this race to come from fourth in the GT3 starting order all the way to lead. He has not put a foot wrong, even with that contact with Ale Torres. That's the only exception you could say, but we'll leave that to the stewards to dissect. But right now, Yanis Albert, who started this one in second and looked very composed all the way since the very start, well, he's wondering what exactly can he do here to upset the composure of Humphrey with one more turn. And Matt Hoyland, well, he's a deputy today for a fellow Axis and Sport Lightning driver, and he's just thinking to himself, can I potentially take a swipe at the win, or do I just settle for third? We've got one more lap to try and decipher all that as they make their way onwards towards the fountain section. Our leader is already up towards turn number 7. There he is, Francisco Barrionuevo, and right now, hold up a second, we've got some drama going on. That's the car to the barrier there. We cut away for a brief moment and then come back. We do apologise for that, but we had a bit of a moment for Niels Cooler, but I think that's been sorted. A moment for Liam Fraser as well. But somebody getting it very wrong there at turn number 8. Barrionuevo not upset by that. Cooler has got damage. That might put him out of contention for 5th place off camera, but we're going to stay with your race leader, ladies and gents, and because he makes his way through the hairpin, well, it's been a bit of a challenging time for Francisco Barrionuevo at Circuit Charles Villeneuve. Things did not click together on strategy nor pace, but here today he survived the test of time, and at Long Beach, Francisco Barrionuevo rules these streets in the GT class for Inosis Esports, and then it will be a little bit of time before we do get to your GT3 winners, and with it your GTE runner-up, because William Humphrey makes his way out the final corner, and as he does so, well, the Crazy Good Racing driver holds off Yanis Albert to take GT3 victory. Albert is second, Matt Hoyland is third in GT3, and Graham Wildmon is right behind them for a runner-up position in the Soy Boys Racing GTE ahead of Jaden Scotton. He's absolutely ecstatic because he's just taken his first podium of the season in GT. Well done to the Flatline Racing ex-driver ahead of Lewis Kenyon, who in the end does finish ahead of Niels Cooler, who I do believe is going to get to the finish, but not before Pedro Luis da Silva completes his run to 4th place in GT3, and that gains him some critical points over rival Ale Torres. Chris Jennings in the end didn't have enough in the tank to beat him, but did beat Harvey Wheeler, and it'll be Archie Williams, and there is Ale Torres in the rear of your picture, 8th in GT3. Now he's lost some ground today. We've then got a few more drives to come through, including there's Niels Cooler in his wounded Corvette for Axis SimSport Fire. He finishes 5th in GTE, match of the season best result. Max Wheeler in the end didn't have enough time to close him down, and Christophe Demay, a 1 point chase of the podium in GTE, had to settle for 7th. But goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, it definitely was a challenging race for so many drives up and down this field. And as the last of our drivers come to the finish, and I do believe Thomas Pugh being the very last of your GTEs to finish on the lead lap in 8th place overall. Well, our drivers call them down, and one thing's for certain today, it was a race filled with drama, and unfortunately that drama hit Graham Wildmon right at the core as he was looking to try and close even more time on Francisco Barrionuevo in the GT Championship, but he survived it. Most of our drivers have survived it out there, and Long Beach has definitely kept us guessing as to how the championships will go, particularly in the Teams Championship. That's going to be an interesting one come 2 weeks' time when we look at that, because the Pro-Am teams have had a whole multitude of points injections. But Long Beach has definitely delivered here today, and with 2 rounds remaining, it could be a huge decision point in the championship charge. But as our drivers make their way into the pit lane, let's take a look to the scenic view and with the race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. And as always, we begin with your GTEs. And as we can see, after an intense 60 minutes of racing here in round number 8 of the SimRacing International America's GT Challenge Championship for 2025, brought to you on iRacing, round 8 at Long Beach saw Francisco Barrionuevo take the GTE win by 22.6 seconds. The Enosis Esports driver had an early scare in the race after some initial contact with a GT3 driver, but that scare did not develop into a full-blown nightmare, and instead it was stage fright for Wildmon, among many who end up in that huge shunt at turn number 8. The Soy Boys racing driver, however, was able to survive it, got the car into the pits, and the team went for a massive undercut strategy with the repair work to get him back out and finish in second. What a turnaround. Jaden Scott, meanwhile, he benefited from it all the most and moved all the way up into third place, having started 7th, and the Flatline Racing X driver bringing the BMW back onto the podium. Lewis Kenyon took 4th there for Bilton and Bangers, a superb result for him, ahead of Axis and Spotfire's Nils Cooler, whose late incident cost him a 4th place, but still a good pool of points there, and he was ahead of Max Wheeler for Freewheeler Racing, who in turn was 6 seconds clear of Christophe Demay for arrive and drive by RA Motorsports, who today was substituted in for Aaron Stitchbury. I think he'll be very happy to finish in 7th in a Ferrari that definitely did not look the most settled, even if he looked very smooth out there. Thomas Pugh took 8th for Axis in Spot Lightning, ahead of Justin Noel, who was the first of the lap down GTEs. The SJS Racing driver there taking 9th, just ahead of Jesse Polakainen, and the Penderspit Motorsports green driver completing your GT top 10. Ron Mackay was best the rest in 11th, missing out versus the Flying Finn, but the Dexterous Motorsports Zemex driver was ahead of Andrew Mutine at the close, with the Axis in Spot Ice driver having to settle for 12th, and then it was Nick Stubb in 13th place there for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing before you came to your 2 lap down finisher of Liam Fraser. For the Moonshutters Racing Club, it was 3 laps down to Martin Kenyon and 5 laps down, and the last is classified for Robin Noel Brown for GPX SimSport Onyx, with Tim Perry in the end taking 6 laps down in the end in 17th place for Altitude 3M Esports. Great to see him finish the race, albeit I don't think he'll be very pleased with how the race went today. And unfortunately, it was commiserations for Andrew Fellows, for Pete Piver, Matthew Bacon, and Hayden Miller. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we then come on to your GT3 finishers. And in the GT3 class, it was William Humphrey who took the victory in the end for Grays Good Racing and returns to the top after a long time away from it. And indeed, when you do look at William Humphrey's results, the last time we saw him on the very top step was in round number 3 at the legendary showdown at what was VIR, if my memory serves me correctly, and the absolute madness that came with that final lap. But he was ahead of arrive and drive by RA Motorsports' Yanis Albert, who finished just 4 tenths behind, and it was the first 6 tenths to Matt Hoyland for Axis in Sport Lightning, with the substitute driver there delivering well on his debut. Pedro Luis da Silva, well, he took a 4th place there for GPX SimSport Onyx and does close the gap to Ale Torres, who was 8th. But between him and the Enosis Esports driver was Chris Jennings for Axis in Sport Fire, who held off Harvey Wheeler at the end for Freewheeler Racing, and Archie Williams for SJS Racing, who finished 7th there in a bit of a lonely end to his race. Alan Watson was 9th then behind Torres, with the Altitude 3M Esports driver who looked so on course for victory early on, having to settle for 9th after a frustrating mid-portion of the race. Dean Sheesby completed your top 10 for Moonshiners Racing Club. It was the third 5 seconds to Joe Glass, with Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing driver being the best of the rest and the last lead lap finisher. And it was a lap down to Matthew Croft, as it was to Robin Pioneer, and 2 laps down to Grant Miller and also Ed Juncker, who completed the top 15. And from the Flatline Racing driver, it was then retirements for John Malnerich, Bobby Moss, and Brandon White. So, commiserations to those who retired, but congratulations to those who finished on the podium in the respective classes. What a race, ladies and gentlemen. And those 60 minutes, well, they definitely felt a lot longer than 60 minutes. So I can imagine for our drivers, it must have felt as though it was an ultimate test of concentration and stamina like no other. But whilst the racing has come to a close, this broadcast does not, because we've got plenty more coming up. Started, of course, with post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. And don't go anywhere, because we will be back in approximately what will be 5 minutes' time for those interviews. You won't want to miss them, and we will see you very shortly.
Of the green flag, and there we go. Tristan immediately getting the jump on his teammate Luke Lucchese, and he's going to have to go the long way around the outside. It's not done yet because Luke will have that favoured inside line going into turn 1 side by side. Has had a good start. He's up 2 places on the outside of Luke Lucchese, 3 wide there. The blue Acura on the inside. Hayden Phoenix Miller has gone from 4th to first in the matter of one braking zone there, and he will carry these drivers now down in toward turn 4. Great start there for the debutant who had strong qualifying pace, and now he might be up with an opportunity of making that stick if he can get the clean air in the next, and Plug could have a good run here. Let's ride on board. How does Denoblica defend going into the chicane? Is Plug going to do that tactic where you just stay there right into the last? Denoblica moves over to the entry into the chicane. Good driving. That's a wobble by Tristan, and he's off the road. He's going to lose the position. Is he going to stick up the inside? No. And is Justin Eloff going to fancy his chances? No, he stays.
Watkins Glen, and to have only 9 minutes till we reset and go again gives the drivers a bit of a moment to pause for thought, because how are you going to manage this, especially if you're 3 wide down the main straight? Humphrey, Leskinen, Katrali all don't get out Rad Harper either. 2x2 into the opening corner. Outside line taken for Humphrey. He's lost a little bit of time on the exit though, as it looks like it's a better run for Cali. Leskinen, the leader now in that pro class, as they run their way up the hill through 2 and 3. It looks like Raz Harper's got the best run, and now we could see both elite drivers come through on both pro drivers. They'll have to get it done on the outside of the bus stop, and that is going to be more than difficult to do. Who's going to get the slipstream? That could be crucial.
And as we now head towards the line, the first round of the season in the America's GT Challenge is underway, and there's a bit of a check-up on the second row of the grid there, as some of the guys have to really slow down and keep it under wraps. But now as they go into the first corner for the first time, hopefully everybody keeping it nice and clean. We'll have to see just how they do. All the GTEs making their way through. Obviously there's a bit of a gap back to the GT3s. They have their own race starting separately, and it's Justin Eloff ahead of Alex.
Getting a bit busy though towards the front of the GTEs. There's a bit of bump drafting. Perry's in here as well. Tim's looking to try and find his way through. Brian Wildmon at the back of this pack as well. Hayden Miller getting the big old push from Perry as they work their way towards the opening corner. I think it's probably quite smart from Tim there just to keep Hayden closer to the front too, because if Hayden loses out, they all lose out. So he's not necessarily going for that move.
to go for it as he looks all the way into the S's. 2 by 2 they go behind Christopher Wandler and Moss there. Well, they have swapped places back to how they were. And, well, this is going to be Williams. A small tap between the two of them. They just about survive it. And in the end, Archie Williams is going to make the move. Stick around the outside. That's bold. That's brave. But that's how you get it done. And more cross the line he goes. And now Christopher Wandler also ahead there as Bowie Moss gets forward. And now they make the way down. You can see he's pulling over there, Darren. He's not happy. He knows he's vulnerable.
He does. He's just defending that inside line. He knows it's difficult to walk around the outside into the S's. Barrioneuvo is going to try it though. He's got a great run and he's already passed. He's already passed before we get to the corner. Easy as you like. And Wildmon can do absolutely nothing to defend there. The exit wasn't too poor from the Ford Mustang, but there's too much pace in that Corvette in the straight line. And Barrioneuvo just waits bye-bye. Easy for the 77.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for us to get our post-round interviews underway, and we roar away straight into our first interview of the evening, and it's going to be with none other than William Humphrey from the GT3 category as we get to hear about his brilliant drive to victory. He joins me now in the interview room. Good evening to you, Will. Goodness me, what a race it was in the end. I mean, you were in the thick of it from the start to the very end, and at the very end, you've come away victorious. But how was it for you out there?
Oh, that was a fun one, but it was damn scary. Don't think I had the pace at all throughout that whole entire race. Only maybe like the first 5-10 minutes of that. I was stuck behind Hoyland or Yanis or whatever was happening. It was very stressful. My tyres went in like 15-20 minutes in. I started to go, which wasn't great. Then I had a few taps with a couple people, which isn't debatable what happened there. So I had damage for most of the race, but I managed to just keep it clean for the rest of it until we got to the pit stops, and then you get that fast repair in. And then after that, it was all about just doing my best to Fernando Alonso and just not letting anybody pass.
Oh, indeed. You drove an absolutely brilliant defensive race all the way through to the end versus both Matt Hoyland and Yannis Albert. But just before we talk about that, talking about the point you were saying there about not feeling as though you were on pace. I mean, in qualifying, you took 4th place, quite a respectful qualifying lap. But what felt wrong then?
Qualifying, I actually think, in terms of pace-wise, is a lot better than the race, which is quite unusual for me. But I just didn't get the lap together, especially on my final lap, which I really didn't do well in. It's like I was happy with P4 at the time, but I wanted to get Hoyland out of the way very quickly and to start the race, which I wasn't too happy about that I didn't. But I think it's a lot to do with the setup. I need to have a look at that a lot more, especially with this, how hot it was. But yeah, I think if I delve into that a little more, I think I can find a few more tenths out of it.
I see. Well, finding a bit more time in the setup, that's always possible, but still, you rolled with what you went with, and in the end, having started 4th as we looked at some of the early pictures of the race, it looked as though in at least the early stages before some of the chaos unfolded, perhaps, that it was going to be a race where the top 3 were gradually creeping away, but you were always in touch. Was that what you expected the race to be like?
I expected Matt to pull off a little bit more than he did. Which kudos to him, he didn't. And I expected Yannis to get past Adam quicker and sort of run away, but it's Long Beach. It was more, at the start, it's more the fact of just getting my groove in, just seeing where I'm at, and then seeing what I can do in terms of getting places, like what happened with Yannis and Adam. It's all about just keeping it clean around here and just hoping that they'll mess up or they'll get taken out or something like that.
I see, and with that thought process, of course, we saw things go very differently as the race started to unfold, and very quickly you found yourself propelled up the order. There was the instant for Adam Watson firstly that dropped him out the lead, then subsequently we saw other drivers getting it wrong, and then you find yourself in effectively a three-way fight for the lead, and you still got the best part of 25 minutes before you come into the pits. I mean, you must have been thinking to yourself at that point, okay, what on earth's going on here?
Yeah, it was a bit like it's a bit like Yannis has gone, oh bye, and then Adam's gone, I was like, oh bye. It just kind of happened, and my tyres were already basically dead at that point. So I was like, just keep it in a straight line, don't let anybody pass. And then if I kept going with the fuel saving that I was doing, I could hopefully get an extra lap, which I just quite didn't get. But I still managed to get one of the later pit stops, which meant I could still come out ahead of people and then still keep the lead after the pit stops.
Now, of course, I do have to ask, and many always would like to ask, and we'll take your opinion on it, of course. There's no right or wrong. It may go to the stewards, it may not. A bit of contact between yourself and Ale Torres. I mean, it looked as though it was fierce racing between the pair of you. Something tells me, from your perspective, you felt as though you gave the room into turn one. He was perhaps trying to push over a little bit. But just your thoughts on what happened there.
Yeah, I mean, like, we were basically budget all throughout the straight. I think near T1, I was... See, I don't know where the stewards will look at this will look at it in this sort of way, but I believe I was still entitled to space because he knew I was there. He always knew I was there, and I was not going to be there. Sorry, I wasn't not going to be there. But he just kept on coming across me and edging across me, and then eventually that we made a little bit of contact. But I had my wheel was straight, and I'll show that in the sim. But it will go down to the stewards, and we'll see what happens. I don't know what will come from it. I think best case scenario will be racing instant just because of how Ali came off, but find out next week or in the next 2 weeks.
Well, that's absolutely fair, and appreciate your insights on it. And indeed, from what we saw there, it definitely was very close between the two of you, let's say. But coming on to a more positive aspect, strategy-wise, you went towards the long end of the opening stint, and with it so did Matt Hoyland. And when you came out, you're back in the lead of the class, but you've got Yannis Albert fitting himself right between the two of you, and you've still got 12 minutes of racing to come.
Yeah, that was very much a case of give it 2 laps, see how you can defend, see where he's good, where you can defend, also where you should defend, and where you shouldn't. And then after that, it was pretty much rinse and repeat, unless he tried something drastic. But it's Yannis, he wouldn't really do that unless it's the last lap. But it was very stressful, to say the least. It was fun, but it was very stressful, and it's nice to see 3 different cars in the top 3 with this sort of stuff, because you don't really see that in officials.
Oh, 100% agree with you there in the fact that you saw 3 different manufacturers all together running nose to tail. But one of the nice things about Long Beach, of course, is it is a very tricky circuit to overtake at. And coming out the final quarter, you must have been breathing a big sigh of relief when you saw the checker flag. And now you've done it, and you return for only your 2nd win of the season.
Yeah, I was so happy coming out of the final corner. I thought Yanis was going to throw something there, but he didn't, which I was quite thankful with. But I was going to defend it anyway, no matter what. I was so happy when I came out of the final corner. I was so relieved. I just shouted, "Come on!" I'm pretty sure I busted my teammates' eardrums.
Oh, fair play to you. I can tell how much it means, and indeed a very well-crafted defence all the way to the finish. Now, of course, it means it's a win. It's some big points for you and the team, and we've still got 2 rounds to go. Road America is next up, our final 60-minute showdown of the season. How are you feeling for that?
I don't even want to think about that track with this car. I don't think I'll do too well, considering the tyres were not so great today. But actually, it depends on the heat, thinking about it. If it's the same heat it was today, then it's not going to be very good for me. But if it's a little bit cooler, then I might be able to find something about the setup and see what I can do with that.
Oh, fair play to you. Well, we'll see what you're able to do with the setup over the next 2 weeks to get yourself in a prime position, perhaps to make it a 3rd win of the season. But just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
So this is a bit of a funny one, but my mum has dared me to shout out chicken nuggets for some reason. I don't know, but we're going to go with that. And a big shout out to my girlfriend, my family, SRI, and Vince as well, who's watching along.
Oh, goodness me. Well, I do love the chicken nugget shout out there. Although I do have to ask, if you have chicken nuggets, does your mum or yourself prefer plain or Cajun flavoured or any other spices in between?
Didn't even know that was a thing. What?
I don't know myself, to us. I'm sure there's a spice of chicken nuggets out there, but we'll let you figure that one out, Will. Congratulations once again. And, well, a brilliant drive to a win in GT3. And we look forward to seeing you on the grid in 2 weeks' time at Road America.
Awesome, thanks so much.
So hearing there from William Humphrey, ladies and gentlemen, the grazing good racing driver there who delivered today, even if he perhaps didn't expect it. Talking about in the early stages, the changes of pace and finding that qualifying was not too bad, but the setup on the car just did not give him the confidence that he needed to extract the most out of it as the racing went on. And as a result, we saw that in a way in the race itself. In the early stages, and these pictures really shine, the 3rd to 4th place guy who couldn't really catch up to the leaders but didn't really fall away from them. But when it all changed at the front of the field with the pit stops plus also instant for drivers, that's when suddenly he came into a world of his own. He was sort of missing the final 5%, you could say, to be able to move forward. However, it was all to change then, and a bit of a battle with Alex Torres. We heard his perspective there, thinking that Torres started to come across him, and he was never going to budge. He was giving him the right amount of room, and well, in the end, it went wrong for Torres, but it went right for Will Humphrey, and the grazing good racing driver then using strategy and pace to ensure he would be leading up the race in the crucial closing stages, and no matter how hard Yannis Albert charged after him, nor Matt Hoyland, it went the way of the number 98 BMW driver. He doesn't fancy his chances necessarily at Road America, particularly if it's piping hot at the circuit like it has been here today. And it's getting very hot in this commentary booth, I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen. But right now, for William Humphrey, he's going to savour the moment and be very happy about it. And we look forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do in our penultimate round come next month. But we've got more interviews to come, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back for interview number 2 in less than 60 seconds. And well, ladies and gentlemen, we go from the GT3 class to the GTE class, and it wouldn't be a AGTC broadcast if we didn't hear from the man who joins me now. It is none other, of course, than Soy Boys Racing, Graham Wildmon. Graham, all things considered, it was a very different race. You still finished 2nd. How do you feel right now? Do you feel as though it's been a missed opportunity, or perhaps it's the biggest save of the century, given how it all went wrong at the start?
I think a little bit of both, honestly. Yeah, that was not a good incident there to be caught up in. That's not what we need at this point in the season. But yeah, to end up finishing 2nd, I think that's probably about the best we could have done. So a little thankful there. A half sigh of relief, but I think we could have gotten a bit more today.
Well, there was perhaps more on the table, but I mean, you've kept us guessing all the way through because, of course, we left Circuit Jules Villeneuve knowing that you didn't quite get the win that you were targeting, but you finished second ahead of your rival. Here today in qualifying, everyone else was done. You were still taking it quite casually in the pit lane. What was going on down there?
I actually had a hardware failure. VR stopped working for me as soon as I got in the car with probably about 12 minutes to go, so then I had to do a quick restart on my computer. Hop in and try to go as fast as I could there with about 4 minutes to go. Not ideal, not what I'd like to do, and unfortunately I just couldn't get the lap together either. It felt okay, but it just wasn't fast.
Crikey, I mean, as far as things go, when things go wrong, that's from going wrong to going well, and you may have only qualified 4th, but it looked as though every lap you were pumping in was getting quicker and quicker, so you started a bit down on where you thought you were perhaps going to start. How was the start of the race for yourself? Because it looked a relatively clean start, but you were attacking straight away.
Yeah, it was a good start. I think Thomas, that poor BMW, it's only good in the qualifying, and it fades away pretty quick. So I gave him pressure in the first couple laps, was able to get around him, and then I was putting a lot of pressure on Tim Perry, trying to keep him on his toes. He made a couple mistakes, but after about the first 5 or 10 minutes, I hung back a little bit, started saving a little bit of fuel before the incident there. So I was kind of strategizing for more of a longer run, trying to save gas there until everything got turned on its head.
And with regards to things being turned on its head, I mean, it's an incident, like you say, nobody wants to see that, particularly when it's late on in the season and championships on the line. But, and this is not me pointing the finger, I should point out, does it feel a little bit awkward as well? Because, of course, your teammate, John Malnerich, was right in the middle of that incident and you came careening into it. Not saying he caused it, I should point out, just that it just feels awkward when it is a teammate who's right at the heart of it.
Yeah, that's never ideal. You never want it to be your teammate. I haven't looked at the incident a whole lot to know who's at fault there, but it just looked like one of those things going into a tight corner too wide, a little bit of miscommunication. But yeah, that's not how I want things to go down. I know it's not how John wants things to go down either. So it's definitely unfortunate. I'm not too beat up about it at the end of the day. It just kind of is what it is. But yeah, it's definitely makes it awkward when it's the guy in the Discord chat with you.
So it was a bit awkward as we do see the replay footage here playing out, but you moved on for it very quickly, and that's the thing we love about you. You always find a way to get something out of it. We saw you bring the car to the pits as quickly as you could. I can imagine, was the thought process at that point is, you know what, it's gone wrong, but we can still pit and get on strategy, or was it a bit of an improvised, oh, actually, I can put the fuel in to get to the end at this point?
Oh, well, the car was absolutely trashed. The steering wheel was 90 degrees to the right after that incident, so I had to pit no matter what. Thank goodness we have a fast repair in this series. So went in, took as much fuel as I could, and it ended up I was just barely on the bubble to make it on gas. So at that point, it's a long stint just trying to get into the rhythm. So I think it was more luck than skill there with any stretch of the imagination, just being able to get that fuel tank to make it to the end.
Well, it worked out. A bit of fortunate in the pits, and then going into the remainder of the race, we saw you and come back out towards the bottom end of the GT top 10, and you started flying, picking off drivers left, right, and centre. I mean, at that point, I have to wonder how much it was, I've got to go for it, versus the risks of hitting a wall at Long Beach. Did you just decide to zone in at that point?
Yeah, it was zone in, do laps as fast as I could there for probably the first half hour after that pit stop. Yeah, I ended up deep in the top 10, and some of those GT3 drivers are pretty quick, especially around here. There's not a huge pace difference. They were actually faster than us on the straights, so it was definitely difficult, especially that pack of top 3. I didn't want to ruin their race getting around them, but luckily everybody cooperated. We were able to navigate it all with each other, and yeah, we got around them, and it was mostly smooth sailing with a couple of back markers. We were just pumping in the lap times, hoping to close something in if we could.
And I mean, it was very impressive in the end, and you quickly found yourself up into the top 5, and by the end of all the pit stops, second. Unfortunately, your championship rival 18 seconds up the road, but the two of you were swapping laps all the way to the end of the race, even if you were on 2 different parts of the circuit. I mean, you're not one to give up. I can imagine a part of you is thinking, I've got to keep going just in case something happens to Francisco until the very end.
Yeah, I think it's just a case of what could have been, missing around in the middle of the season didn't help. Having an accident in the opening round of Daytona didn't help me. An accident here stopped what couldn't have been, and having a hardware failure that kept me from doing the qualifying I wanted to do. It's all missed opportunities and things that didn't quite pan out how I wanted. So, I mean, you can't go back and regret on it at the end of the day. I'm happy with the driving I've done this season. I think I've driven this Ford as fast as it possibly could be driven, if you could see with the rest of the Fords in our series here. But You know, I think it's just a bunch of what ifs at the end of the day.
Well, that's a very fair point, and let's take those what ifs and uncertainties into what could be. We've still got 2 rounds to go, and even if you don't become champion, I can tell you one thing, you're one of the fan favourites already. You've been all the way for season long. What can you deliver for us at Road America?
I think this is another good Ford track. Looking at the historical data, the Ford's been strong here. It's another track where I can trim it out and run pretty low wing. So as long as the weather cooperates in the sim and it's not too hot, I think we'll have the straight line speed like we had in Canada to make something happen. So we're going to still keep pushing. I'm still going to be putting in the time and effort that I've been putting in week and week out, and we're going to try to put on a good show and hopefully drag home another win here.
Well, we definitely look forward to seeing whether you can drag home another win on the car's home soil as well. And what is your home soil? But just before we do let you go, Graham, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast?
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to everybody we got in the chat here. A lot of my friends like watching me race in this series, and they're very vocal in the YouTube chat, which I know is great for you having somebody to riff back and forth with. So I'm just thankful for all of them just coming and watching me every other weekend. And I'm glad that you're putting on such a great show for them to watch.
Oh, thank you, Graham. I'm very grateful for the company of having them all in there as well. I mean, they're a fantastic bunch, even if they do encourage me to point the camera on you more than everybody else. But that's absolutely fair. But with that, good sir, it's been a pleasure talking to you as always. Congratulations on a great recovery to second. We do hope we get to see you have a round where you can give the Ford GT an absolutely huge blast down those straights at Road America in 2 weeks' time. But until then, have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Graham Wildmon, and to be fair, a really good perspective from him there. Not talking about regrets, but talking about all the questions of what could have been, and this one being that today. Interesting to hear there about what happened in qualifying. The hardware failure really limiting how much he could do in the qualifying session, but even so, to have to jump in the car with only 4 minutes left on the clock and deliver a lap good enough for fourth, knowing that he probably had the pace to be on the front row if not for pole. I mean, that's one way of definitely showing to people, look, I don't give up until the very end. And in the race as well, it was looking very good at the start, and then the huge incident at turn number 8, which he's going to have a look at back at with his teammate John Malrich to understand what exactly went wrong, and they'll learn from it. Well, in the end, it saw him have to go onto a plan B that had to be improvised, and thankfully he was deep enough in the race and to be able to charge onwards, and we got to see Graham Wildmon at his very finest, locking in and making overtakes left, right and centre on GT3s and GTEs. And for the Soy Boys racing driver, he's going to go to Road America knowing he's got another big step to climb, but with it, he's going to see whether he can absolutely deliver in this Ford GT and put another win on the board down its rather long straight, and we look forward to seeing whether he can do it. We've still got a couple more interviews to go, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back for another one very shortly. We're going back to the GT3 class, but to whom exactly, you're about to find out. And so back into the GT3s we come, and we come to Matt Hoyland, who now joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Matt, and well, what a way to deputise for why your teammates are accessing Sport Lightning today. Third in qualifying, third in the race, and right on the heels of the race winners right at the end. You couldn't ask for much better, surely.
No, it's not a bad debut for a team, is it? Yeah, I've been desperate for a drive in AGT since it started, just as a reserve thing, because I couldn't do it full time. And yeah, I've had a blast. It's been great fun tonight. To be able to stay with, obviously, Will and Yanis are supremely talented, and to be able to stay with them right to the end, yeah, amazing.
Well, absolutely fantastic work for yourself. I'm glad to hear that enthusiasm really shining through with you being on the grid. Let's roll it back a little bit in terms of the day. A very hot circuit here at Long Beach. Track temperatures pushing upwards of 40 degrees centigrade in practice, let alone in qualifying and the race. How was it for you in terms of managing a Mercedes that normally loves to spin up those rear wheels?
It wasn't too bad. The setup, as it turned out, wasn't great on a heavy fuel load. Qualifying it did very well, which showed qualifying P3, but then on the start I just couldn't keep the two guys behind. It just didn't want to know. It was understeering, it was oversteering, it just wasn't very happy. Once I dropped a bit of fuel off, it was pretty good. I was pretty happy with it. The only issue I did have was getting out of the last corner, which coincidentally is the place you need a good exit to really make a pass around here. There's not really anywhere else you can do it. So it meant I could stay with people, but I couldn't really look for a pass on anyone. So I was just preying on everyone else's mistakes. But yeah, the behaviour of the car was pretty good. It was just trying to get out of the last corner. That's it.
Well, it definitely was tough for yourself with regards to negotiating those conditions at the slower speed corners, like you say. But coming into qualifying then, 21st overall, 3rd in class. Were you surprised by your qualifying points, or was that where you expected to be?
No, definitely. I mean, I knew my pace was all right, given how I'd done in practice as well. I think I've finished maybe P6, P7 maybe in practice. So a top 10 would have been where I was expecting to be, but to get on the second row, yeah, it was way beyond my expectations, and it really paid off, because even if I didn't have the immediate pace on the guys around me, it did allow me to stay ahead of the main pack, which, especially on a track like this, is a huge advantage. You just lose seconds a lap if you're stuck in traffic. So yeah, it really paid off for me. A big surprise.
Well, it paid off nicely and you surprised yourself. And going racing then, what we saw in the early stages was this interesting pack of 5 where you found yourself towards the back of it, if I recall correctly. Did you change your approach to the race then based on the fact you'd out-qualified your expectations?
No, not particularly from the qualifying position, because I didn't... At the point qualifying was done, I still didn't feel like I was going to be outpaced because of how the car was going to feel when it was heavy. So, I mean, once the race started, and it became apparent quite quickly that I wasn't going to be able to keep Will or Ali behind me. So I thought, rather than risk losing the front two, I'll let them go, sit on the back of the pack. Obviously, everyone from 6th backwards had lost maybe 6-7 seconds to us within a few laps. So I knew as long as I could stay hooked on the back of that train in front of me, I'd be somewhere decent, at least until the pit stops, and then we go from there. But obviously there was plenty of incidents with leading cars ended up off the track, or an incident or whatever, and it moved me up. So as it turned out, being at the back was a pretty good place to be.
Oh, 100%. And what it meant was gradually, of course, you could move forward and work your strategy. So going a little bit deeper into the race then, of course, with the fuel tanks going so long here today, and the fact that I believe yourself and William Humphrey both going the best part of 42 minutes or so before opting to pit, when you came back out, did you expect Yannis Albert to put himself right between the two of you?
It didn't shock me. I know how fast Yannis is. There's no underestimating him. He's incredibly fast, but it was very difficult to gauge because your laps varied so much depending on what cars you got around you. Obviously, we got some GTs that were passing us. We got some that we were passing if they got damage, or lap GT3s. And it did take me by surprise at pit exit because I couldn't actually see him. I knew he was there somewhere. So when I came out into turn 1 and he was literally glued to my front corner, it took me by surprise a little bit. We did have a little bit of contact, but thankfully nothing major. But I can't say I was shocked. I was a little bit disappointed, but I knew it was going to be there or thereabouts.
Oh, fair play. And then talking us through that dynamic for the final 10 minutes. I mean, you're at the back of a 3-car group. You're all together. It is for the win in the GT3 class. You looked as quick as the top 2, but something tells me thought you wanted to go for a move, but was it the risk that if you go for a move on Yannis, you'll lose the opportunity to chase the win and vice versa?
It wasn't so much that. I mean, I had the pace to stay with him on a lap, but unfortunately for me, where I was making time wasn't the places you needed to be fast to get a move done. So realistically, the opportunity was never on. It would have been something risky, which, especially coming in as a guy on a reserve, I don't want to go spoiling people's seasons with something silly. So I just basically sat there, stayed with him, tried to put a bit of pressure on. If something would have happened, yeah, maybe I could have took advantage, but at the end of the day, I was more than happy where I was in P3.
Well, an absolutely fair point there in the fact that you didn't want to compromise anybody else's races, and a very spectacular 3rd place at that. I do have to ask, Matt, can we expect you to be back on the grid for any of our remaining rounds now that you've had one chance of it? Surely you're going to get an addiction to this.
I don't know. I mean, if I get invited back, if Axis want to give me another little run out, I'll be more than happy to do it. But at the end of the day, it all depends on what's available. Again, I don't want to be taking someone else's seat time away. I'm just there if I'm needed, that's all.
Oh, fair play. We'd love to have you back on the grid if you can jump into the seat. But if not, for a single round, you've definitely impressed. And just last thoughts, of course, for yourself and the team. We've got 2 Axis SimSport teams leading the Primes Teams Championship. I mean, the mood in the camp must be quite positive.
Yeah, it was very mixed today. There was some very mixed fortunes, from what I could tell. But yeah, they're a great bunch. I mean, this is literally the first time I've ever raced with them. The first time I have interacted with them. We've actually, as you know, when we met you at Donington, I have met the Axis guys. But yeah, it's been good fun. It's been nice to race with a new bunch. I've raced against them a lot, but never as an ally as such, which is a bit of a play on words considering it's called Axis. But yeah, it's been good. I think they're a good bunch. They're definitely looking strong in the pro-ams.
Oh, well, fantastic. And Matt, just before we do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast?
Yeah, just a thank you to Ash. Obviously, he wasn't going to be racing. He thought of me to drive for him. So thank you for getting me in. Thank you for Axis for letting me drive as well, and being welcoming. And yeah, it's been a great experience.
Well, Matt, it's been absolutely great having you on the grid today, and well done on that third place in the GT3 class. A great way to represent the team, like you say, who you've normally been on the opposite side of the battlefield too, but today forming the alliance, and well, I think they'll be very pleased with that. If we see you on the grid any more this season, we look forward to it, but if not, we will see you at some point in the near future. Until then, take care, my friend.
Thank you, Paul.
So here and there from Matt Hoyland, ladies and gentlemen, standing in for Ashley Brooks today. And what a way to stand in, and what a way to talk about it as well, knowing that he surprised himself a little bit with his performance and therefore opted essentially to go for what would be a bit of a broke situation of trying to go for the podium. However, he wanted to play it safe all the way through, and the reason he chose to do so is not because he didn't fancy his chances, but because he didn't want to spoil the championships of any driver in front of him, knowing that most of these drivers have been on the grid for the opening round of the season and have been there ever since. So therefore, prioritising get the car home, get the points, and make sure to have some fun out there, but not do anything that endangers the race to anybody else. And that's why we saw him play quite placidly in the second half of the race, particularly when he came out of the final stint and not try to make a move for second or the win. And well, by doing so, guarantee some good points, and for Axis SimSport Lightning, it's a huge haul of points at a critical time where things are looking very tight in the Pro-Am and Pro Teams Championships. And Axis SimSport, after their mixed results today, they may have moved up, they may have moved down, but one thing's for certain, they're going to be right at the top with only 2 rounds to go. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got one more interview to go, but who exactly is it going to be with? You're going to find out very shortly. And so he's been waiting very patiently, but he's always a very patient man, is Dean Sheesby. And as he joins me now, let's hear a little bit from the Moonshiners Racing Club driver who started his day 10th in GT3 and finished it 10th in GT3. Dean, a race where the results would say you didn't go forward, you didn't go backwards, but I'd like to say it was definitely a race where there's plenty of forward moments and there are a few backwards moments as well. But how was it for you out there?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. A lot of people don't like this track, but I think it's really good. Obviously, when the incidences happen, it can be carnage, but on the whole, I've really enjoyed doing this track. So, yeah, really good race.
Oh, 100%. I mean, a lot of fun's been out there, and like you say, incidents are part of the street circuit racing, but you look to be very happy out there. In a BMW as well, running a bit of a different livery today by the looks of things. Is there a special reason for the livery?
Oh, I've just mixed it up the last 3 races, that's all. Just mix it up.
Oof.
So yeah, no reason to it. Just a bit of fun.
No worries at all. Always good to mix things up, like you're saying. Gives us a fresh bit of paint. But as you roared your way on around here today, let's talk a little bit about qualifying. 10th in class. Was it a qualifying lap you were happy with, or did you think there was more on the table?
Probably close to my limits. There might have been a little bit more, but to be honest, I had 0 practice. Literally jumped into the session, tried to get a setup up, and every 3rd lap I got hit by a GTE car. So yeah, I was struggling to get any sort of setup practice done. So I literally just went with the high downforce setup with a couple of tweaks and hope for the best.
Well, it's definitely a fair approach to take there in terms of, essentially going for the best and seeing what you could do. And when you came to the race itself, we did see quite a bit of progress from yourself in the early stages. So just take us through what the race start was like. So I can imagine the GTEs, they all got away and were fighting each other. But GT3s, it looked so it was just processional as per the rules, and it actually felt quite nice to get into the race.
We messed it up. I believe we were supposed to go double file again at the start, but we didn't. We all just single filed it, and I don't think anybody really knew where we were starting. We were just waiting for the car in front to go. So, yeah, it probably made it a lot cleaner than it might have if we were side by side. It gave everybody a chance to get around T1 on the fountain, and then the race just unfolded from there. For myself, I was right on the back of the car that was in front of me, putting a bit of pressure on him, and I finally got past him, which put me up one position. And then I had Matthew Croft on my backside for a fair while. Noticed he tried to undercut me in the pit stop. I thought I'd try to put a couple of really good laps out, and I saw when I eventually came out of the pits that I was a good 9-10 seconds in front of him, which worked out in my favour. I think he unfortunately got stuck in a traffic jam at the last turn, but definitely me staying out and not going in early made me miss all that, and yeah, paid dividends. So yeah, and then I had the lights. I think it was Watson, Altoro, and I forgot who the other lad was who passed me before the pit stop. But I knew they were all faster drivers, and I thought, I'm on my limit pretty much where I was anyway. I was like, I can either try to defend these, and there's a good chance that I'm going to either kill myself or we're all going to die, or I just take a nice solid P10, which I was aiming for, and that's what I went for. I had the likes of Joe Glass and that behind me, and to be honest, there was quite a few drivers who normally beat me that were behind me, plus the drivers that I'm normally around the mix with were all behind me as well. So from my point of view, with my pace, I was probably as high up as I was going to get in that race. So I thought, yeah, let them have it, and we'll just finish the race off.
Oh, very fair. And by the sounds of things, really, that 10th place, whereas for many perhaps would think, well, 10th place, that's nowhere near the win. For yourself, must have felt like quite a bit of a personal win out there, because like you say, being ahead of most drivers who were similar to pace to you, but also plenty of drivers who were faster. One thing I do want to ask about, and being more in the mid-pack, obviously GT traffic comes through. What was it like dealing with the GTs going through? Because these cars are so similar on pace around. It's just in the braking zones and the straights where the differences are.
I timed it well, personally. The first 3 or 4 came past me, and they came past pretty much single file. And then just before I pitted, there was a group of 3 or 4 behind me, and I was iffing and awing whether to go one more lap or not. And I had a little bit of a low last couple of corners. I was like, no, just dive in the pits. So I dived in the pits, come back out, and I was in clear air with one passing me at a time. So I got really lucky with my positioning, my timing. With the GT traffic, there was a couple of times where I was wanting them to come past me and they held off, and I lost a bit of time, and they probably lost a bit of time. It was hard to judge it, but at the same time, there was no incidences with it, so yeah, all good from my point of view.
Well, an all-good race and staying out of trouble all the way through to a solid top 10 result. Road America is around the corner in 2 weeks' time. How are you feeling for a trip to the Wisconsin countryside?
If you'd asked me before last Thursday, great. But after last Thursday's visit to the wall twice at the King, we'll see. So yeah, different machine this time. Maybe the BMW can like hit that curb a bit better and not kill myself on it. But yeah, no, I like track. I was unfortunate on Thursday, so yeah, looking forward to it.
Oh, well, we look forward to seeing you try to conquer the demons of Road America 2 weeks from now. But just before we get ready to let you go, Dean, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast?
Yeah, shout out to the family. Obviously, time given up to race on here every other Sunday and every Thursday, and then to the Moonshiner Boys as normal. Great team behind us. Good group of friends who really push each other, and then to yourselves as normal. Stream's always great. Setup's really good here at SRI, so yeah, thanks to all you boys. Without you, we wouldn't be doing it. So,
well, likewise, Dean, we have to give a big thank you to you, because it's absolutely brilliant to see you deliver week in, week out when it comes to the racing in the AGTC, and today has been no exception. Congratulations on your 10th place finish, a well-deserved one at that, and a very rewarding one, and we look forward to seeing whether you can deliver an even more rewarding result at Road America in round number 9. But until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening.
watch.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from our final interview of the day, Dean Sheasby, the Moonshiners Racing Club driver, who was very happy of his performance and put it all in perspective there, and it's fair to talk about it. Some drivers, they only see victory as an achievement. Meanwhile, others, they're very focused on those around them and who they beat exactly and who they're battling with. And that's exactly what Dean was talking about there. In fact, this 10th place in a field of 18 cars may not sound like much, but to him it was very precious in the fact that most of the drivers were on a similar pace to him that he wanted to beat finished behind him, and there were also some big names he also beat over the distance, and that's why this 10th place means so much to him for Moonshiners Racing Club, and very pleased about it. Looking forward to Road America? Some would say perhaps not now, given what went wrong for him in the Thursday GT3 Championship earlier on in the week. I'm sure he'll be able to get the practice in and beat those demons in the BMW here, whereas previously he has been running a different GT3 machine there. But he's always one who keeps us interested no matter what, and I do wonder where he'll be able to make it another top 10 in GT3, and if so, can he go even higher with 2 rounds to go? Well, we'll see him then to find out. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that brings our interviews to a close. And we've had a bumper edition of interviews today, predominantly GT3 drivers to be fair. But to give you a recap, a big thank you to all 4 of them, starting of course with your race winner today in the GT3 class of Grays and Good Racing's William Humphrey in the 98. We then heard from the number 53 of Graham Wildmon for Soy Boys Racing. Second place in GTE, but goodness me, he gave it a good go, did he not? Matt Hoyland then joined us for the 3rd place finisher from the GT3 class for Axis in Sport Lining in his deputising race. The only time we'll see him on the grid this season, most likely based on current circumstances, but you never know, we may see him again, and if so, we'd love to see him deliver another great performance. And we just heard from your 10th place GT3 finisher for Moonshiners Racing Club, Dean Sheasby. They're very happy with his achievements. Well done to all 4 of our drivers there for brilliant racing throughout, and a big thank you to them all for joining me in the interview room. But with that, of course, it does mean it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wondering how you can be on the grid at SimRacing International, whether it be on weekends or weekdays, we have got plenty of racing going on a weekly or fortnightly basis. Well, for all that and more, all we need to do is join the beating heart of the community that is the official Discord, link at the bottom of the screen. And if you do that, well, you can join us on the grid for one of the following. Our GT3 Championship is sponsored by Trophy.ai that runs on Thursday evenings, currently coming to the close of its 10th season, which is due to conclude as of this coming Thursday, i.e. next week, but there's already season 11 around the corner. Alternatively, if you're a GT3 driver but you fancy something on the weekends, we do of course have the series we host on the behalf of UK sim racing communities, the Sunday GT3 League, currently coming towards the end of its 16th season, and that's going to continue our 17th season going into 2026. You've been tuning in today, of course, to the fortnightly Sunday evening America's GT Challenge Championship in its inaugural season. It's impressed with the mixture of GTE and GT3 machinery. And then, of course, something on the more casual side, if you don't want to pay to be on the grid or you're looking for something far less competitive, we do have our free-to-join Practice League, which does run on Tuesday evenings and Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. So there's never been a better time to be on the grid at SimRacing International, and to be part of the story, all we need to do is join the official Discord. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include Trophy.ai, CarMate, Modern Technology, SimCoach, where you unlock your true potential, GP2 Group, and last but not least, Motorsport UK's esports division. And a huge thank you to them for the continued recognition of us here at SimRacing International as a recommended community, and we long want to continue our working relationship with Motorsport UK going into 2026. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, the rounds continue to count on down. It is 2 to go then, and after a dramatic round of racing at Long Beach in California today, well, we will make our way all the way to the picturesque Countryside Classic Circuit of Road America, Wisconsin, and for round number 9, set the date in your calendar, because it will be the final 60-minute feature race round of the season. On Sunday, the 7th of December 2025, we'll see our drivers roar the way through the rural countryside, and well, we could see some Drivers' Championships wrapped up early, because in GTE, Francisco Barrionuevo was able to pull off a win, which is absolutely crucial and puts him within touching distance of the trophy, albeit Graham Wildmon will be chasing him hard in a Ford GT that is destined to be quick on the straights of Road America. As for GT3, well, right now it looks as though it's starting to move into a bit more of a ground of uncertainty because Ale Torres' lead will have been cut from 81 points to approximately 50, and Pedro Luis da Silva has 2 rounds to try and make the biggest possible impression he can. But how exactly will it all turn out in the Teams Championships as well, with so many teams today having the results shaken and stirred? Well, for all that and more, come join us 2 weeks from now to continue the story of the America's GT Challenge Championship here at SimRacing International. But until then, we have been SimRacing International. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, like our drivers, remember to stay on track. Good night.
For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.